And good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I am Glenn Clark. He's Griffin. Got a bunch to do on the program today. Coming up later on this hour, it's Tuesday, so our weekly chat with Patrick Stevens. Talk some Terps. They did indeed move into the top 25, all the way up to number 18 in the top 25. In fact, they'll be back in action Thursday night at Ohio State. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about local hoops as well. First weekend of college lacrosse season. Patrick Stevens joins us coming up a little bit later on this hour. I was trying to smoothly take off my pea coat, and I think it's stuck under my butt. So now it just looks awkward. Now it just looks like I'm hung.
Do you need me to come over there, or?
No, I think I can. It's just I thought I could do it smoothly. It's like when you're a younger man.
What would you? Okay.
When you're a younger man, it's a big deal to you how quickly and effortlessly you are capable of removing a young lady's bra. You think about it. She thinks about it. If you're fumbling around, if you're struggling, she's going to make fun of you. She's going to. It's going to be an awkward moment during the coital activity. You're going to... It's going to be a part like... You ever taken off a bra before? Like, there's going to be a moment like that when this goes on. When you're smooth, when you got, like, one hand and you just... Then she's like, oh, wow. Wow, this guy. He knows what he's doing. This guy has had sex before. This guy.
Wow.
This guy.
Impressive.
He's met a woman before. I'm not. He's no virgin. This guy F's, you know what I mean? Like, that's... You have that moment, and so it actually becomes like a thing in your mind. Now, I, of course, have been coitusing with the same woman for, I don't know, a million years now.
Wow. Congrats.
Jeez.
Right?
Yeah, no.
Hey, congrats on the congrats on the sex.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. It's been a million. So it's no longer a thing it's not been a thing in my life for a very long time. I haven't given thought. But even still, there will be times where if for some reason, like, she'll still make fun of me for it. Still, to this day. She'll still do the first time. Like, still. And it's not even something I've thought about. Like, I don't give any thought at all, but I remember being a young man. And the nervousness, just the panic that you would feel in your mind about how quickly you were going to remove her bra. You believed that if it took you too long, there was a chance she was going to shut the whole thing down. She was just going to say, you know what, maybe you're not tall enough to ride this ride. Maybe this one, maybe we got a little too far. Your eyes are bigger than your stomach. Maybe this one wasn't the one for you. Maybe you know what, you tried to buy the first car. You should have taken a few more test drives. You know, like maybe. I'm telling you, you thought about it when you're a young man. When you're a young man. You convince yourself, I better get this thing off. Like, to the point where, even if you're in, like, an uncomfortable position, like, even if you're, like, in a car or something where, like, there's not a lot of room, you'll attempt to use two hands. You will. You'll attempt to use two hands because you are nervous about what might happen should you struggle with one hand. Now, when you get a little more cocksure, when you get a little bit more...
I don't think there's any problem with two-hand approach.
There's not a problem. No one's saying it's a problem. I'm saying when you really want to... convince yourself.
Yeah, okay.
You convince yourself that not only one-handed, but specifically left-handed. That you're going to be like... She's going to be like, oh, my God.
See, then it's...
She's going to be like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Now, you may do whatever you'd like to me. Like, that's what you convince yourself. You convince yourself of that. That if you can, that it's ollie oxen for you.
See, the key is to not let her know that I'm left-handed.
Ah, now that's next level. That's next level. That really is impressive. Like, that is a... See, I'm telling you, man, I don't know why that just... Like, I got caught up here, and it made me think of that. Like, I just thought I could be smooth with it. Like, I thought I could sort of drop the pea coat, which I could have clearly dropped before the show started, but I don't know why. I just
you're a busy guy coming in here.
Other things going on, other things happening. Well, I was running a little late. I I was out late last night.
That's true, yeah.
This is really what happened. I was out late last night. The first alarm went off this morning. I said, I'm going to go ahead and set a second alarm. First alarm went off at about 8 o'clock. And I said, nope, got in very late. Here's the bit. So I went to I didn't know what I was going to. I just thought I was going to see Third Eye Blind last night. I didn't realize the story is they're only in town. They're also doing a thing at Soundgarden today in Fells Point. They're only in town because they're taping Tiny Desk concert.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is very cool. They're doing Tiny Desk tomorrow. I was thinking about we could do a definitive power rankings of Tiny Desk, but then I realized like everybody just says Mac Miller. It's like this thing where everybody's like Mac Miller's the best Tiny. It's a good one. It's a really good one. Nobody's debating that. It's really good.
I'm probably not well versed enough to rank the other ones, but the Mac Miller one.
Maxwell to me, the one that because he just did it last year. Maxwell's Tiny Desk is otherworldly, like otherworldly. I did watch. I don't like Chappell Roan as much as everybody else likes Chappell Roan, right? Like I really do like the Pink Pony Club song that she did on the Grammys the other night. I really do like that song a good bit. Yeah, it's a jam. I'm not gonna. It's it's all the whole thing. I might keep on that, and then she gets the whole crowd to sing it to her. Like it's great. That's what pop music should be. So I recently watched Chappell Roan's Tiny Desk.
And Sabrina Carpenter, she's doing it right too, I think.
No, she didn't sing.
Okay,
it's a huge problem. No.
She was singing, I think.
No, not on Sunday.
Not the entire time.
Maybe
she did like 3 songs, didn't she? Or actually, she did 2.
I think she did 2. Yeah, she did.
There was
Please,
like parts of 2. Yeah.
Please, and she did Espresso, right?
Yeah.
She like did a little bit of both, and like the whole thing was cute and it was funny. And the whole deal, like I'm not trying to like this isn't me going war on Sabrina Carpenter in general. It's
Sounds
that
like it.
no. This is a music show.
Sabrina Carpenter,
when you're
Post
on
Malone.
settle down. Well, Post Malone has 2 good songs.
He's got more than that.
No, they're none of them are Olivia Rodrigo. That girl's a star. She's a star, man. We were having a whole conversation about it. I don't know how we got here. Oh, Tiny Desk. So Third Eye Blind is in town to tape Tiny Desk. Apparently it's on Wednesday. They're taping Tiny Desk. So they just wanted to do Tiny Desk rehearsals because, these bands don't play acoustically very frequently. So they played the Atlantis, this tiny, I think, 400-person club.
Wow, exclusive.
In D.C. Like, this is a band that normally, when they're here, plays Merriweather, right? Like, so they played this 400-person club in D.C. last night. And it's all acoustic. And, like, he's admitting, like, we're going to screw up. Like, now they charge $60 for the ticket still. It's not like they were giving, I think the thing today at Soundgarden is free, actually. But you got to be there at noon to get a wristband, and then you got to come back. It's like a whole.
So we're ending the show early?
No. I have the radio show tonight. If I didn't have a radio show tonight, 100%. But I got the radio show tonight, so it's not an option. So anyway, the Third Eye Blind thing, it's tremendous. Like it's wonderful. It's different. They're not playing like they don't play Semi Charm Life. They don't play. This is for like hardcore Third Eye Blind fans. And yes, hello, this is your boy. They did play Jumper because apparently they're going to play that during the Tiny Desk. That's going to be one of the songs they play during Tiny Desk. They play Motorcycle Drive-By. They did play anything that they're going to play in Tiny Desk. So anyway, whenever I go to a show in D.C. with my buddy Brandon, he lives in Annapolis. I always agree to pick him up because I don't drink. It's always my thing. Like when we go to a show in D.C. or we go to Merriweather, I'm like, dude, I'll pick you up. That way, if you want to drink, and it comes out in the wash, right? Like he'll hook me up with stuff. It's a whole. We just have that relationship. But then you start doing the math of when you're dropping him off at his house in Annapolis at midnight.
Oh, okay.
And you're just like, oh, no. Oh, God. So, yeah, I set the alarm back when it went off at 8 a.m. this morning. I said, gonna need a couple more minutes. Gonna push that to 8:45, in fact.
Wow,
I really went for it today.
Nice.
I really went
You're well
for it
rested.
Today. It was. I set that for first alarm goes off at 8. Put it for 8:45, and then when it's 8:45, you gotta hop out of the bed, right? Like, there's no because sometimes the alarm goes off and you sit there for a minute, you like see what's going on in the world, you'll check I don't know, your fantasy football team or something like that. Maybe check the on this
obviously
day
NBA scores.
Yeah. You know me.
Well, now it's NBA season finally.
Gotta know. I do know that Coppin beat Coppin beat UMES. Morgan lost to Delaware State last night. I did check both of those. But yeah, I do my routine normally. Today, no. Popped, shot out of the bed.
Wizards won a game
like
last
Drew
week,
what are they doing?
2 in a row.
What's going on over there?
2 in a row.
Drew McIntyre doing a kip up out of bed this morning.
Oh yeah.
Whew, gotta go. Gotta make my move. So I did. I came in.
Are you like Drew McIntyre? So you're just mad all the time? And
yeah, I am. Well, he apparently stormed out of the Royal Rumble on Saturday night.
Well, they're acting like he wasn't supposed to be he wasn't supposed to get eliminated then, or like.
Well, apparently somebody screwed up and he was really mad about it. So he.
Drew McIntyre's funny.
Said, "I'm out of here, Drew McIntyre. I'm out. Gone." I don't know how we got here. Oh, I was talking about we went from bras to the coat, the whole thing.
Drew McIntyre, yeah.
I was trying to so I could have taken the coat off before the show, but I was setting up the tweet that I was going to send with all the guests and the whole deal, and then I realized, I can just slyly take the coat off as soon as the show begins. I could not.
It would look cool on camera.
Yeah, right?
If you are able to do it.
Yeah, somebody would be like, wow, did you see how quickly? That dude's got skills. It's time to hire him. Time to give him his big break.
This could be the
moment. Turns out it's not. Couldn't even get the coat off in one motion.
You can come back tomorrow and
maybe. I missed trivia last night, but I got both I was sent 2 sports questions.
Were there any Grammy related ones, or was my
I don't know. They didn't tell me if there were any Grammys. Hang on. This is where's John Proctor? John Proctor. Who is this person? You don't know. Who is that? You have no idea.
She plays tennis.
Yes. Who is it? Well, she played tennis. Yeah. You have no idea.
Well, it's not Billie Jean.
No, it's not Billie Jean King. No. Just say you don't know. We can move on. Because the other one you should get. Just say you don't know. Move on. It's Althea Gibson.
Althea Gibson.
Yes, obviously. You knew that. I don't know why I bothered to. There are 5 Super Bowl winning head coaches with the first name of Mike.
McCarthy.
Yes. Mike.
Shanahan. 5 mics.
Yeah. All I need is 5 mics. All I need is 5 mics.
Tomlin.
Yes.
Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Francesa didn't win a Super Bowl.
No, close.
He didn't win a Super Bowl.
God, it is my favorite. The account that used to always make fun of Mike Francesa every year this week shares the famous clip of him saying, we're going to go into Radio Row next week, but what we're not going to do is we're not going to have all these people just coming on and hawking all these products. We're not into that. And then this is a super cut of
him plugging
a guy after guy just coming on and plugging terrible products.
Ditka,
of course, yes.
Darn, one more.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, these are the 4 they got. They got these 4, and they did not get the 5th. And for what it's worth, in order, I got those 4 before I got the 5th.
All right, so I guess start going. Let's see. Sean McVay is not Mike.
It's definitively not Mike. Yes.
Yeah. Andy Reid, he's not a Mike.
We're going to have to put a timer on this because we do have to do other content this morning.
All right, Mike. What other Mics?
Yeah.
Michael.
There is one other, I promise you.
Michael.
There is one other. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Who was...
he did not go by Michael, for what it's worth. He did go by Mike.
Mike Jones?
No, Mike Jones. Don't act like you don't know the name. Who?
Mike Jones.
Who?
Mike Jones. Not Mike Jones. He didn't win
Mike
Super
Jones,
Bowl.
no.
Yeah.
Did a lot of things.
Yeah.
Lots of things. Wrote for the USA Today.
Was it before 2000?
Played basketball at Maryland. By the way, wasn't Mike Jones the name of the linebacker that tackled Kevin Dyson on the 1-yard line in the Super Bowl, the Rams-Titans Super Bowl? I believe it was.
Mike. Was it before 2000?
Was it before 2000? Yes.
Okay, but it was kind of close.
Yes. Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
He also coached in a Super Bowl after 2000.
But he lost. Michael. We said McCarthy. Who was? Man, I
told you he won a Super Bowl with the same team as one of the guys you just named.
Oh, okay.
One of the other.
Who was coaching?
One franchise had multiple Mikes win Super Bowls.
Who was the coach before McCarthy in Green Bay?
Who was the coach for the Packers before Mike McCarthy.
I don't
Who
know.
was that gentleman?
I don't know.
Who
it
was
him?
he?
Was it him?
It was him.
Darn. Mike.
Won a Super Bowl with Brett Favre.
Smith.
Not Mike Smith, the former Atlanta Falcons coach and one-time
Mike-
Ravens assistant, brother-in-law of Brian Billick. No, not Mike. Not
Schottenheimer.
Mike, not Mike Schottenheimer. Not Mike Nolan. He never
Mike
won
Nolan.
a Super Bowl as a head coach. Not Mike Singletary, who of course famously said, "Can't win, can't do it, can't do about that." Vernon
Wasn't
Davis.
Mike Messina?
Wasn't Mike Messina, believe it or not. Wasn't. We're gonna do King of the Mikes. Mike. It wasn't Mike Zimmer. It wasn't
Yeah,
Mike
that was a good
Tice.
guess. Mike
It
Tyson
was
never coached the
Mike-
Packers.
No, Mike Tyson also never coached anyone that I know of. But I do know what his ass looks like. Got that going for me.
I
This is
guess I'm
exciting.
gonna have to wave the.
Oh,
flag.
wow. Mike
I don't know.
later went to a Super Bowl with the Seahawks.
I don't know.
Losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
What was that guy's
Matt
name?
Hasselbeck was his quarterback when he was in the Super Bowl with the
I was
Seahawks.
gonna say Alexander, but that was the running back.
That was Sean Alexander, was a running back. That's a fact. He did play the running
Was it
back
Mike
position.
was it Mike Alexander?
It was not Mike Alexander, believe it or not. When the Seahawks played the Packers on Sunday Night Football, they had him do the open for it this year on NBC. He did the Saturday Night Live cold open for the Sunday Night Football game. Because it is,
Mike.
to my knowledge, not related to a player from the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Mike.
Not related, I don't think.
Mike
I mean,
Gilgeous Alexander.
Not Mike Gilgeous Alexander, but
Mike. Mike Holmgren.
Mike Holmgren.
Knew it.
Mike Holmgren.
Knew
You
it.
had it the whole way. You had it. It was right there in front of you. It was right there. You were just, oh, man, if you just kept weaving, you might get there eventually. Yes, Mike Holmgren.
I thought I had with Gilgeous Alexander
the
for a
fifth.
second.
Yeah, right. Oh, Mike Gilgeous Alexander. That so close. God, I forgot that Shea didn't start his career in Oklahoma City because he responded to the Luka trade, and he was like, "Hey, man, it happened to me once,"
Yeah.
and I was like, "It did." I just always thought of.
Was he a Raptor? What was he?
He was
I don't remember what he was.
he was drafted by the. Obviously he's from Toronto. He was drafted by the
Okay,
Hornets,
that's why.
but then immediately traded to the Clippers. The Clippers, he was there for the first year of his career.
So he did play.
He played in
Okay, that
2018,
does-
2019
does
with the
sound-
Clippers, his rookie season. And then he traded, the Clippers traded Gilgeous Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, and 5 first-round draft picks for,
Wait. The Clippers traded for, and this was to the Thunder.
yes,
Chris Paul? No,
Not
no,
Chris
this
Paul.
Chris Paul was already there. For Paul George.
Paul George.
Was it worth it?
Paul George. I would say no.
5 first.
I would say
Now he's the Thunder.
I would say no. Has not worked out in the benefit of the Los Angeles Clippers, that particular trade. But I utterly, I have memory hold that somehow. That Shea Gilgeous Alexander ever played for another franchise. In my mind, Shea Gilgeous Alexander, career Thunder. It blew my mind.
I mean, I didn't.
when I saw that tweet, I was like, what do you mean he got traded? What are you talking about? Like on draft night? That doesn't count.
Right.
Everybody gets traded on draft night.
Luka and Trae Young were traded.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, what are we doing here? Come on, SGA, that's a stretch. And then I went and looked. I'm like, holy crap! Turns out he wasn't lying. Shea Gilgeous Alexander knows more about Shea Gilgeous Alexander than I do.
Why would he remember that?
Yeah, it's wild, Jack. This is wild news to me. There was one last week that I never gave you because I knew you wouldn't get it. But you know,
Okay, well,
we're here. And what
I
the
got the mic one.
yeah, that's a great point. How dare I discredit you? You nailed that one. What was the name of the baseball announcer played by Bob Uecker in the Major League Film franchise? We could be here all day.
Steve.
You could just start putting words together,
Glenn.
and you're not coming up with
Steve Glenn.
Yep, Steve Glenn. Oh, Steve Glenn.
I know it's Glenn Steve. Glenn Steve.
Glenn Gary, Glenn Steve. Yes.
Jack
By the way, I got to give
Smith.
I got to give the boys
Jack
credit. They
Eisenhower.
couldn't come up with the 5th Mike last night, so they went with Mike Oxhard. Mike Oxhard. Mike. You get it. You get it. The legend.
Mike Oxhard.
Yeah, oh Mike. you get it. You get it. These guys.
Wait. No. No. I didn't. No.
Yeah, these guys F. Like, they know how to take a bra off. They can one-handed. Might even be able to do it with their teeth. You're good, right? We can just. It was.
It was because it was
You
it was
don't.
Jim.
Why are you still pretending like you're going to come up with this?
Jim?
Yeah, old Jim.
Jim Oxnard.
Yeah, Jim. There you go. Old Jim Oxnard. Of course, the great Harry Doyle.
Okay.
Harry Doyle, of course, was the name of the announcer played by Bob Uecker in the Major League franchise. So, again, I knew you weren't coming up with it, pal. I'm not disappointed. I knew you weren't getting it.
Okay. Thanks. I
knew
guess.
that
Good.
Have you ever watched any of the Major League? Films?
No. I didn't need to watch.
That would be one.
Yeah.
If we get back in, I guess maybe it's that time of year
yeah,
where we
I
need
guess
to get back into movie reviews.
I need to watch Freddy Got Fingered since we're talking about it
No, we
yesterday.
do not. You don't need to spend any time.
That
You
sounds like.
You
but
did.
it's a,
No, you don't need to spend any time with Freddy Got Fingered. There ain't nothing there.
But
There
our boy,
is
but our
nothing
boy's in
there.
it.
I
Right?
do love Tom Green,
Yeah.
but that one, it's like Little Nicky. It's just nope. Whatever you were shooting for, it was a miss. It was a miss. And no matter how many times Jeremy tells you that, Jeremy and Kyle used to love They would talk about Hot Rod.
Oh, I
constantly.
haven't watched. I do.
Don't.
The clips I've seen look good.
Yeah. You know what?
Andy
watch,
Samberg.
Watch the clips.
Andy
That's
Samberg, right?
exactly what you should do.
He's a funny guy.
I would tell you Pop Star's not even great, but
Popstar's pretty good.
it's fine.
So you're saying
it's
if I like
fine.
Popstar, I'm gonna like Hot Rod?
I don't know.
All
I
right,
don't,
then I'll
I
watch
don't know.
Hot Rod.
You're not doing it.
Hot
for,
Rod next.
You're not doing it for movie reviews. We're not doing
How?
Hot Rod.
It's,
No,
it's part of it.
no,
part of
we're
the.
not doing that. But you can put Major League on the list. That is definitely a classic that you should spend time with. What was I talking about? I don't even know what I was going to lead in with. I got the coat threw me all off. We've done 20 minutes about things that I wasn't even prepared to discuss today. Did I say? I said what was coming up on the show, right? I did do that part. Patrick.
No, I don't think
I didn't do that. Patrick's coming up. We're obviously going to talk to him about the Terps and
Towson,
college
maybe,
hoops. Yeah. I mean, we will.
Or leave with Towson.
Miracle of miracles. Also, we will talk to Brad Jackson, Ravens Super Bowl 35 champion. Now he's a scout for the Senior Bowl, so we will talk to him about who was turning heads down in Mobile last week. And a little bit later on in the program, the great Rick Dempsey will join us to remember the life of Orioles Hall of Famer Rich Dauer, who, of course, tragically passed away yesterday. I say tragically. But he was only 72. That is still tragic. And I think I remember the story of Rich Dauer falling and everything that he went through a few years ago when he was with the Astros. And I remember him coming on with it was such a big deal for him to be able to be part of the All-Star Game staff the following year. And we had a really special conversation with Rich Dauer. That was the last time he was on this show. But, yeah, Rich Dauer sadly passed away, and Rick Dempsey will help us remember an Orioles Hall of Famer and a World Series champion. So all of that coming up on the program today. Today's show brought to you by the CIAA tournament.
It's coming back to Baltimore. Baltimore is welcoming the excitement of the Food Line CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament at CFG Bank Arena from February 25th through March 1st. Tickets are available. You got to get them now. Head over to Ticketmaster.com. Again, Ticketmaster.com for your tickets to the Food Line CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament at CFG Bank Arena, February 25th through March 1st.
Roger Goodell held his annual Super Bowl week press conference yesterday, said he was surprised by the allegations towards Justin Tucker, but didn't offer really anything beyond that. The league was looking into it, and that was about all that you got. Did say that it also didn't make it seem like the 18-game thing is immediate. Like, definitely poured some cold water on how quickly that was going to be happening. I mentioned this on the radio show. I don't care about all of you. Anybody whose opinion is, this is too much, this is ridiculous. If you're an NFL player, I can maybe understand that. If you're any of the rest of us, what in the ever-loving hell are you talking about? We had nothing to watch on Sunday. Nothing. People were trying to convince me to watch the NASCAR, the Clash. They were like, "Are you going to watch the race?" I'm like, nope, sure not. Believe it or not, no. Not gonna do that. We did a segment on the radio show like, hey, are you gonna watch the Pro Bowl? Or if not, what are you doing? And somebody called in like, I'm gonna watch golf. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Pebble Beach, right?
It was Rory McIlroy.
Rory,
yeah,
yeah.
big win for Rory. I'm sure Drew wants to talk about it. I do not. We need more football. It's what makes this country tick.
Well, XFL's
Our
coming
entire
back soon, right?
no real football. Our entire economy is
Hitting each
based
other?
on. Thank you. Our entire economy.
Making field goals.
The only thing we have. The moment football goes away, we're right back to being like, oh, this place sucks. Like, we got nothing. We're trying to start trade wars. We're like, what the hell is this place? The moment we don't have football around, we have to have more football. Have to. Anybody, again, I understand the players. The players have every right to be concerned. Everybody else, the hell, whenever anybody says, Oh, now they're going to force an 18th game down our Force? We should be begging! Begging! Please give us an 18th game, please. People are like, and they continue the stupid charade of Thursday Night Football. I'm like, what does it matter to you? Why are you fighting about these things? Again, understand the player's perspective. Why wouldn't you want Thursday Night Football? Why wouldn't you ask them to consider more Wednesday games? They did it this year. Maybe we could do Wednesday Night Football moving forward.
Jeez.
Maybe we could do.
Well, Wednesday is the max night, so.
What's that?
Maction.
Oh, well, they can have. They have Tuesdays. They can still have Tuesdays.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, they can still have
something about midweek maction. 2 nights, 2 night
you
events.
Need,
2 night events.
You need 2 nights of action.
Yeah, I do.
All right. Well, I think the MAC would still be allowed to play.
Yeah, but no one's gonna watch.
I got a dirty little secret.
What?
No one's watching.
What do you mean?
Yeah, you're not losing.
I count as no one?
Yeah, all right, got bad news, pal. I got bad news.
Nothing better.
You would still be
Eastern Michigan.
You
Akron.
would still be allowed to watch. No one.
Yeah,
would,
but if
the government would not come to your residence and say you better put the NFL
unless it's
on.
the Giants and the Jags every Wednesday night.
And by the way, might be. All right, I don't know what we accomplished in this first segment, but I enjoyed it. It was pleasant. We'll come back in. We'll talk to Patrick Stevens. Maryland's in the top 25. We'll talk to him about it.
John said he watched football from England and France all day on Sunday.
Like soccer, he's saying.
I guess so.
Yeah, that's what people do. That's what it comes to. All right, we'll come back in. Talk to Patrick Stevens next. Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
COVID-19 and flu viruses are circulating in Maryland. But don't worry, protection is within arm's reach. Protect your health with this year's COVID-19 and flu shots. It's safe and convenient to get them both at the same time. Flex your protection. For more information, visit health.maryland.gov/vaccines.
This message paid for by the Maryland Department of Health.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCRs, continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. Today's show is also brought to you by County Sports Zone. Everything you need to know about high school sports here in the state of Maryland, you can find at countysports.zone as we do move towards playoff season in high school hoops. Plus, you want to start thinking ahead to the start of high school lacrosse season. That's not too far away. Baseball after that. Scores, schedules, rankings, news updates, everything you could possibly need to know when it comes to high school sports. You can find it. CountySports.zone, which is proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. And as I mentioned yesterday, the Biff Poggi, the longtime Maryland, the high school football coach, going back to the staff at Michigan. That was the big story in this weekend. It is Tuesday, and every Tuesday, our next guest joins us. It's been a couple of weeks for various reasons since we've had the opportunity to talk college basketball. We welcome back to the program, man. You follow on Discourse, follow at Discourse, D1S Course on Blue Sky. And, of course, see him in the Washington Post, Blue Ribbon, USA Lacrosse Magazine. He's our friend Patrick Stevens, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Patrick, good morning, sir. How are you?
I am well, Glenn. How are you doing?
I'm all right. It has been a little while since we've talked, and in the time since we talked, all of a sudden, Maryland not since we talked, but since we talked about college basketball, all of a sudden, Maryland basketball looks dramatically different. They move into the AP poll at number 18, net rankings number 15. How good is this Maryland team actually?
Well, it's playing pretty well, obviously, and I also want to point out that that in this 4-game winning streak and having won 6 out of 7, they very easily could have lost a couple of those.
Sure could.
Certainly the Indiana game, certainly the Nebraska game, certainly could have won the Northwestern game that they did lose in there. But it is playing really well, and I think some of that comes down to having a starting 5 that has largely been very cohesive, and they're getting as much mileage out of it as they possibly can. We've seen Maryland basically have only 2 bad games from its point guard all season. Jacoby Gillespie has largely played really, really well. Julian Reese has been pretty consistent. You get outside shooting. You just kind of look at the game on last Wednesday against Wisconsin. Shoot 12 of 24 from 3. That would have been a fever dream a season ago. The thought of hitting 50% from 3. So, and against a team that shoots a lot of threes.
The thought of hitting 30% from 3 would have been a fever dream a season.
It probably would have been. So, there is. I don't want to sit here and anoint this team as one that is destined to make a multi-weekend run or anything. But I do think there's a fair bit of completeness to them that you look at and you go, well, there's not a whole lot there that you think, well, this is absolutely going to trip them up. I would be concerned if there was an injury or they had a tightly whistled game, especially with the 2 front court guys in Queen and Reese. But there isn't something where you say, oh, this is the kind of team that will absolutely knock them out, a team that brings a lot of perimeter shooting, or a team that has a lot of size, or a team that plays really stingy defense. They seem pretty well equipped at this point to be able to at least be in games against just about everybody. And it's worth pointing out that we're sitting here on February 4th, and Maryland's most lopsided loss to this point in the season was by 6 points.
Right. No, that's not bad. That's not bad. Patrick, I ask it this way, which is Maryland separating themselves a little bit from the pack in the Big Ten, or are they just the team right now that's playing well in the Big Ten? And I bring that up in the context of, a couple. You brought up the Nebraska game. That was part of the reason why Maryland fans were concerned, was because they were so lackluster against Nebraska. But Nebraska was maybe the most impressive team in the league last week with a pair of wins. Is this just the ebbs and flows of the season, or are they actually separating themselves and definitively stating that they're one of the 4 best teams in the league?
Well, I want to be kind of picky about one little thing here, which is that in the league with 18 teams, there's probably going to be 3 or 4 that are playing well at any given point.
Fair,
like UCLA has won 5 in a row since coming back from the East Coast. Purdue, I know they had the slip up against Ohio State at home, but they've played really well. I know Michigan State just lost, but they're 9-1 in the league. My point being that the league is big enough to have several teams playing well at a given time. And it's also worth pointing out that being in the top 4 probably is a little bit more of a challenge than it was previously, just because you are dealing with a much bigger, top to bottom there. But I will say this, Maryland has not lost a conference home game yet this season. They play 4 of their next 6 at home. and they only play 6 games in the entire month of February. So there is a certain opportunity here to sort of get their bearings after a really crammed January schedule. Does that, derail a team a little bit? Does it kind of give them a breather? It's a good question. The fact of the matter is that they do have a few really challenging games toward the end with Michigan State at home and Michigan on the road. And, of course, they have the trip to Penn State, which seems to trip up every Maryland team that ever has to go up there. But there's certainly an opportunity for them to stretch things out and get themselves over these last 9 games to say 13-7 in the league. A 6-3 finish doesn't seem like an outlandish thing for a team that's sitting here at 7-4 and hasn't lost a home game yet in conference play.
It is. Again, I think it's legitimate. I think that's what I keep coming at. Like, this is not, this is legit. I think the Illinois game, there was a reason to say, like, okay, Illinois was depleted. You did a good job taking advantage of that, but like they've backed it up, and I do still wonder about the road thing. Like, was that just the week where they were good on the road? Like, I don't know that we suddenly say they're definitively going to be able to go win games on the road, and I still think that's going to be very difficult. To your point, obviously Penn State stands out. Like, I don't know that you just assume they're suddenly a team that's ready to go regularly win games on the road in the Big Ten.
Yeah, let's see what they do at Ohio State on Thursday. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's a team that they just absolutely humiliated the first time around. So I would anticipate that the Buckeyes, who I think was another team that was largely they'd won 3 in a row before they ran into Illinois on Sunday. That's a team that has a little bit to play for as well. So I think at this point, the thing I find myself feeling about this Maryland team is I'm not sure I want to anoint them a team that's going to finish as a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, but I feel reasonably confident that it's a team that we will see somewhere in that 5 to 8 range, that'll be wearing a home jersey in the first round, will have a credible chance of being able to win certainly a first game and maybe even a second come March. There's just, you just sort of, like you said, with the road thing and whatnot, you maybe want to see a little bit more backed up. But just remember, nobody's playing true road games in the NCAA tournament.
That's the way it works. Patrick Stevens is with us here on GCR. Patrick, let me stay on the national front, then I'll come back to the local front. Andy Katz and I were having this conversation yesterday. How many teams are there in the first group, and how many teams are there in the second group? And what I mean by that is it feels like after, 10, 12, it feels like the next group of teams might even go into the 40s of like it's hard to find real separation between a team that's considered like number 15 and a team that's even like number 35 at the moment. How many teams are in the definitive group of like legit maybe title Final Four contenders, and then how many teams are in the next group of anywhere in between this and this? I'm not really sure how different those teams are.
Yeah, I think almost what you're trying to say is who's a legit title contender and who would you not be astonished if you saw make a Final Four?
Sure.
Like those are I think that's almost
sure. That's a good way of saying it. Yeah, that's a good way.
And so I feel like your group of title contenders is probably no more. You said what, 12? That's probably not far. That's probably not far off. And a lot of them populate the SEC at this point. To be perfectly frank, But I do agree with you that you can get down onto that, projected 8, 9, 10 line. Like you can imagine Creighton making a Final Four run, like just with some of the dudes that they have with Kalkbrenner and all those guys. You can imagine, like a Louisville catching fire and being able to do something like that. You kind of look at even just the current Big Ten standings. And, Oregon's probably down there, but if they're right, they can win a bunch of games. So you're probably not that far off. I don't know if it goes quite to 40, but it's probably pretty close to that of teams that you would look at and say, there's a reasonable chance at this point that this team could rattle off four wins in a row in a single elimination format. But that top tier is probably somewhere in that 10 to 12 team range.
Patrick, the on the local front, Towson continues to win, but I watched on Saturday night. My God, that was a miracle of miracles that they were able to keep that streak going. And it's the thing where, like, you recognize they're winning the games. That matters the most. But, boy, it's hard to ignore the continued, like, just droughts that they have offensively where like, they just look utterly lost for stretches of games.
They scored 23 points in the last 25 minutes of that game.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
A 55-54
final. And that's after getting off to a slow start.
And that's, yes. And they played great for about 10 minutes,
right.
And then the bottom fell out again. And having watched CAA basketball for a long time, one of the things I said to some people was, like, that's the sort of game that Bruiser Flint, who used to coach at Drexel, and Blaine Taylor, who used to coach at Old Dominion, those guys, like, were involved in so many rock fights in that league 20 years ago. And you can rattle off a bunch of other coaches that were in there too. And it felt like a time machine game in some ways. Like, I've seen this before, only it was a couple decades in the past. I've seen Towson now, I think, 4 times since the start of conference play, and they've won all 4 times. But in all of those games, except maybe the NT game on January 23rd, I didn't walk away, like, overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You would say you get credit for winning. And nobody should apologize for losing. But, man, there are questions that still haven't quite been sorted out here. I mean, let's face it. Part of the issue is that they don't have Charles Thompson like they did for the last 5 years.
Sure.
So that's just a personnel thing, and they're making do. And frankly, some of those bigs have had good games. But the thing is, and I know you've heard me say this before, when you get to March, you have to score to win.
Yep.
You have to score to win. There's no way around it. You just simply can't bank on being able to win games in the 50s. And the fact that they have these stretches where the offense just vaporizes is not a particularly encouraging sign. That said, I think the schedule is still very much in their favor. Obviously, they lead the CAA at this point. They're a game up on both UNC Wilmington, who they have the tiebreaker over, and William & Mary, who they don't play until the last week of the season. And so I think that they're in great shape at this stage, with a manageable schedule to be able to get that bye into the quarterfinals. But the reality is that they've got to figure out a way to make that offense more consistent, or it could very easily be a similar story to what we've seen from Towson many, many times in the past. And, I just don't know if that consistency can be achieved. I think at their best, and you see it in stretches, like Tyler Tejada and Dylan Williamson playing really well off each other, Mendatar coming off the bench. Christian May has had a rough season for him, and injuries are certainly part of it. But they need to achieve that consistency and figure it out here at some point over the next month or so, because I think it's a valid concern as to, will they be able to score enough to get by?
It is amazing. This is the way we're talking about a team that's won 8 straight games, but it's valid. Yeah, to what your point, it's valid. We're all seeing the same things. We watch this team. We're like, kudos, good for you for literally figuring out any way to win a game. And that's the way it was on Saturday. And speaking of survivals, I after the services for Pete on Saturday, I did get to watch a good bit of the Loyola game. They survive, and Patrick Stevens, I got a request from Brian Powell that you try to make sense of the Patriot League, because all of a sudden you look and, like, everyone is bunched up right in the middle, including both Navy and Loyola.
Yeah, I mean, you basically have between 4-6 and 6-4. That's all but 3 teams in the league. And you got Lehigh at 4-7, so only a half game out of that. I mean, I think American is probably the best team in the league. They're 8-2. They're by the standings, they're certainly the best team in the league. But they're an old group. I've got a great player in Matt Rogers to play through in the middle. And I think some of it, I think the really startling thing when you think about the Patriot League is that Colgate has lost 4 in a row. And they've not just lost 4 in a row, but the last 3 have all come by double digits.
Yeah.
and they just got demolished last night at Lehigh. And that's just not what you expect to see from a team that has just been royalty in that league for the last 5 or 6 seasons. So I don't know if there's – I think the thing that you would say about the Patriot League is that there probably isn't like a great team like those Colgate teams, but there's also no horrible teams. I mean, you look up and down the line, Navy has the fewest victories overall in that league, and they have 8. And so, typically you might see a team scuffling along with 4 or 5 at this point. And Navy obviously showed prior to Saturday anyway that it had some spunk in rattling off a few quality results. So, I think the other thing you look at in that league is that, the home court winning percentage has actually mattered this season. Not as much as it did in the early going when I think they were like 22-3 or something like that. But it's still 36-15, which is the 3rd best home winning percentage out of all the conferences this season, according to KenPom. So it's you really don't know what you're going to get on a given night when you show up in that league. But I do think there's probably, aside from Americans' misstep at the start of the league schedule against Navy, they have been the most consistent team. I mean, they got hammered at Navy on January 2nd, and their only other loss was a 6-point loss at Boston U on the road. So I feel like they're kind of the known quantity, and I just don't think there's much separation between too many other teams.
Anything else on the local front that we need to talk about?
Oh gosh,
I know UMBC wasn't able to back up the win at Vermont.
Yeah, UMBC is such a weird team. Right. And I saw them on Thursday, and they actually played pretty well against Bryant. They lost 92-86 in a game featuring 2 teams that like to score. So didn't play as great against UMass Lowell. They are now 0-4 at home in conference play and 3-1 on the road. So you can go ahead and try to explain that one to me. Maybe it's good news they're heading up to New Hampshire and Maine for the weekend. But Mount St. Mary's also got back on track a little bit this week. So them getting back over 500 in the Metro Atlantic, winning a couple road games after dropping 4 in a row. They've got a pretty manageable February, and if they can get on a roll, they can, I think, set themselves up to be in good shape for a top 4 seed in the Metro Atlantic. Big one for them for tiebreaker purposes on Thursday when Iona comes to Emmitsburg.
And then anything from the first weekend? I know Hopkins went out and got a good win at Denver. Anything else from the first weekend of lacrosse that jumped out at you?
Yeah, on the local front, not particularly. Like you said, Hopkins handled its business against a fellow team that made a multi-round run in the tournament last year that lost a lot. And Hopkins lost a fair bit too, but that was, that game was played between Hopkins up 4 goals and Denver up 1 goal. So it wasn't as if it was just a completely lopsided thing at any point. So good for Hopkins for winning that game. An interesting, quick turnaround for them coming back from the Rockies to play Towson tonight. Maryland handled its business against Richmond in very workmanlike fashion. So that's good for them. And I would say that Navy scoring 14 goals in its opener is something that stands out a little bit. The Mids had, I thought, significant questions there as to who was actually going to be, doing things. And the fact of the matter is that they had a lot of guys do stuff. And when you think about Navy, maybe not at their 04 and 05 peak, but what you would typically think of a Navy team, frankly, what you would typically think of a service academy team when you look at some of the Army teams of recent vintage. Like, that's kind of what you would think, is that you just have a bunch of guys that chip in, and here's 1 and 1 here, and here's 2 goals there, and here's 1 and 2 here, and the next thing you know, you've done enough to pick up a road victory. So a good start for the Mids, and they get Iona, another team playing Iona this week, a first-year Division I team come Saturday in their home opener.
Not a great start for Loyola, who I say it was a great start. They got off to a 4-1 lead, and then sheesh, it went south.
Yeah, well, I think as we talked about that there was going to probably be a little bit of an adjustment period for this version of the Greyhounds, and that certainly came to fruition on Saturday.
All right, it's time for our game. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB players that this player played for? I think I said that incorrectly. I don't know what that sentence. The MLB teams that this player has played for. And the new rule, a former Oriole, even if never making an All-Star game. And the first one, I will tell you, Patrick, I went 2 for 4 on. So
Okay.
if you remember the last 2, God love you. And I guess we have to acknowledge it's really only 3 teams because we know one of them's the Orioles. For Sam Horn.
Sam Horn. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, obviously he was a Boston Red Sox.
That was the other one that I got, and I did not get the other two.
And he was a Baltimore Oriole, obviously.
Yeah.
Sam Horn.
Yeah.
That is a really good
You know what?
one. Wow.
I just went and looked, and it was 23 total games, and the other 2 stopped.
God.
I got to do a better job of looking at that number. I just see the years. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that is probably a
ball-busting.
bit steep.
All right.
Do I vaguely,
Okay.
ever so vaguely, remember him as a Cleveland
How do
Indian?
you remember that? Ow. It was 12 years. This is the problem. I talk myself out of guys. I mean, there's no way I can put this on the list until I do one of these, and then somehow you remember that Sam Horn played 12 games with the Cleveland Indians. How do you remember that?
Okay, so what year am I? What year am I?
95.
He
He was out of baseball altogether in 94, and then came back and played 11 games with this team in 95.
Oh man, so he probably was playing for somebody right after the strike, which is just a delightful thought. Sam Horn for the 95. Let's see if I can summon a good answer here. Sam Horn, 95. Let's say the Rangers.
Shut the.
Careful. Jeez.
Dude, we're not doing the other 2. We're just leaving it. How? Tell me where you're going to be. I'm not kidding. We're not doing the other 2. You just got 12 game and 11 game stints for Sam Horn. Forget it. What are we doing? Tell me where you're going to be this week.
We'll be at Towson tonight for Hopkins Towson lacrosse. Then George Mason, George Washington basketball. Wednesday, Mount St. Mary's and Iona up in Emmitsburg on Thursday. Georgetown Seton Hall. Saturday, Maryland Rutgers on Sunday, and Lafayette American on Monday.
What, you're doing a doubleheader tonight? You're doing both? Is it a 9:00 tip?
No, I'm doing Towson and Hopkins.
Oh, okay. The George Mason, George Washington is tomorrow. I thought you said
tomorrow.
That.
Yeah.
I was like, what is that? How is that possible?
No, it's not. It isn't. It isn't unless you're leasing me a helicopter,
right?
And sending that helicopter into the future.
There's just no way. I'm sorry. I'm still flummoxed by you getting the Cleveland and Texas. I sorry. That's gonna set me off for a while.
Texas was a complete guess. I had some inkling that Cleveland was right.
It's unbelievable. At Discourse, D1S Course on Blue Sky. That's how you follow the man. Patrick Stevens, thank you as always, my friend. Let's talk again next Tuesday, all right?
Awesome, Glenn. Take care.
Thanks, buddy. Like, this is the type of thing where, like, if it were anybody else, you'd be saying to yourself, you pulled up Wiki. You, like, but when I talk about a man who has pride and who loves the game, I don't even know what to say. How? Sam, you don't even know who Sam Horn is. You don't know who Sam Horn is.
Orioles legend.
You've never heard the name before in your life.
I think I knew he was an Oriole. How many games did he play with the Orioles?
Yeah, he played a few. Yeah, he was with the Orioles for a bit.
Yeah.
You don't know who Sam Horn is.
I mean, if he walked in right now, no, I wouldn't know.
There was a guy. Did you see there was a guy that walked in?
No, I was too enthralled with Patrick's
Griffin was so long. A guy walked in, and I think all he was trying to tell me is that he just wanted to take a copy of press box. He just held up a press box, and I just nodded at him, and then he just walked off. And I think in hindsight that he was just trying to say, "Can I have this?" Which, yeah, of course, sure, by all means, they're free. That's the concept. It's still available at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Pressbox. Read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. It's still the best of issue right now. We're getting closer to the new print issue of Pressbox, which is available soon. Absolutely, go right ahead and take that print issue of Pressbox. But I just realized he was just standing in the doorway, and I'm not trying to make jokes about these things, but he could have been trying to hurt us.
Yeah.
And Griffin would have just been like, cool.
Trying to run a radio show here.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Today's the day.
What do you mean every day?
Yeah, today's the day you decided that you wanted to keep a tight ship around these parts. Gentlemen just walked. I didn't even have the ability. Like, I should have, like, in hindsight, be like, can I help you? Like, is there something else? Were you here to meet someone? Was there just held up press box? Like, he didn't. There's no way he, like, was like, God, I got to find one of those press boxes today. Googled the address for the press box company and just showed up to get a singular copy. There has to be more to the story of how this gentleman ended up wandering in. But I'll never know.
Yeah, you could be making this up for all I know.
No,
I did not notice this guy at all.
I look, older gentleman, a white gentleman.
Was it Stan?
No, it wasn't Stan, but I get it. Fits the bill of that ilk. Check. I get it. I just, and then he was gone. It was like it never happened. I'll never know the story. Was he lost? Was he just wandering around
maybe it's
the
like
business park?
People do like, because there's a dentist right next to us.
Was it possible that it was someone that was looking for reading material for the waiting room at the dentist office? Like, didn't like that they had a U.S. News and World Report or the Highlights magazine or whatever the hell they had.
Or very possible he thought this was the dentist office, walked in, realized.
But then said, hey, while I'm here,
wait a minute.
I'll just go ahead and snag.
I love press box.
Lamar Jackson, huh? Well, how about that? I'll go right ahead. I'll never know the story of this gentleman that just wandered in here like this. But it happened as we were talking to Patrick Stevens. That's how my day's going. All right, well, there's that. We come back. Yes?
Yeah. No, I guess I don't have anything.
Oh, I thought you were going to tip something in there.
No, I didn't. I thought so too.
I do that bit sometimes where I say, coming up next, and you want to get a word in edgewise, and it causes problems. So when it looked like you wanted to get a word in edgewise.
No, thank you. I don't have anything.
I regret it. I seriously regret that decision, as you had nothing to offer whatsoever. Come back in. Brad Jackson, Ravens Super Bowl 35 champion. He's now a scout for the Senior Bowl. Let's find out what he saw down in Mobile last week. He, of course, because he's a scout, saw these guys, well before they arrived in Mobile. So we'll talk to him about some of those names that are popping up now on the radar for the draft. That's coming up next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and it's our very special Best of 2024 issue. On the cover, we celebrate our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, Lamar Jackson, as Bo Smolka profiles what the quarterback means to the community beyond the football field. Also inside, we celebrate the top people, performances, and moments of the year in local sports. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always read the entire issue and find the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. crowntrophy.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR as continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. Still to come this hour, we're going to celebrate the life of Rich Dauer as our friend Rick Dempsey, of course, 1983 World Series MVP, will join us to talk about his 1983 World Series champion teammates. So that's still to come on the program today. Today's show also brought to you by the Brigance Brigade. We speak about, we're about to talk to a Ravens Super Bowl 35 champion, and of course we all know that one of the greatest and a Super Bowl champion is O.J. Brigance, and the Brigance Brigade has done unbelievable work in our community. I mean, truly special work for those that are battling ALS to improve their lives, to help the families, and those that take care of them. And their big annual event is their Winter Soiree. It's coming up Friday, February 21st at Martin's West. You can get tickets right now by going to brigancebrigade.org. Great food, live music, including Jimmy Charles, lots of dancing, live auction, special guest appearances, all to support the Brigance Brigade and the incredible work that they do in the name of the great O.J. Brigance. So that's coming up February 21st. Get your tickets right now, brigancebrigade.org. And speaking of Super Bowl 35 champions, our next guest, this man spent all sorts of time here, media mogul. Now he's settled into a role as a scout for the Senior Bowl, and it's a pleasure to welcome back. He is our friend, Mr. Brad Jackson, and he's back with us now here on GCR. B-Jack, it's Glenn. What's going on, brother? Thank you for taking the time.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Pardon my voice. It was a long weekend in Mobile, Alabama, but it was a heck of a lot warmer down there, and on the field and off the field, obviously, than it was in Baltimore with the weather being down there. But a lot of good players, a lot of good talent. So it was exciting to get back down there. But thanks for having me as always.
Hey, dude, it's good to hear your voice. There's so many guys that I want to talk to you about, but I know for everybody down there last week, the story of the Beck family, I know, just sort of stands out so much. And you know, it can be hard to in these all-star games, it can be hard to have like really special moments, but. Can you just, like, beyond the player, the man, everything, what you learned about Jack Beck last week and everything that you saw?
Well, it was amazing. Obviously, you know, condolences still to his family. For your listeners that know, his brother Tiger, who wore number 7 at Princeton University and was a player, was tragically killed in a terrorist attack in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. And so, you know, Jack, you know, who played at TCU, and he earned the right to be there, obviously, to get an invite. You know, we always say the draft starts in Mobile, and we are the best of the best. And, you know, no disrespect to some of the other games, but, you know, the numbers, the records that we've broken the last couple of years, that I've been fortunate to be a part of the team, you know, as far as guys drafted from, you know, we're over 109, 111 last year, you know, over 10 first-rounders. So he earned the right to be with that group of young men and young stars that are coming into the league. And for him just to have the moxie, you know, being around him all week long, you know, in cafeteria, you know, as the guys are on the bus and the interviews with the team, and for him to come out there and compete at a high level with a lot of things on the line. You know, as a former athlete, a lot of times, you know, one of the things that is helpful to us is that the locker room, the practice, the games, it kind of takes your mind off of problems you may have at home. And that's one of the things, though he said he never was not thinking about Tiger. There was moments that when he can laugh and joke and the things that happen on the sidelines and in the games, I mean, in the practices, and obviously, you know, the game is a game, but it's not as serious as a regular season game, even though the guys play hard. There was a lot of, paying exchanging helmets with these young men, trying to show their mettle to be drafted into the NFL here in 2025. So just a phenomenal young man. And then how that game ended, you could have scripted any better. I was standing in the end zone where he caught the touchdown, and there's 7 seconds to go, which was his brother Tiger's number. He was wearing number 7 in honor of his brother, and then to catch a walk-off game-winning touchdown that ironically was thrown to him from, obviously one of our quarterbacks from the University of Memphis, and obviously, Seth Hennigan, and Memphis's mascot is the Tigers. So it's almost one of those things you couldn't Hollywood scripted that a Tiger threw it to Tiger's brother wearing number 7 with 7 seconds to go. And so obviously you guys have probably seen it, the impact of, what that meant for the team and the coaches and standing there and just his family breaking down crying and him crying. It was amazing. And he's a heck of a talent, for the people. I know we'll get into a lot of the players and positions, but, just talking about Jack, I mean, he's a big old boy now. I mean, 6'1", 214 pounds, big, physical, strong. So for your listeners, if you want to think about Alec Pierce out of the Colts, if a guy that he's probably a comp to is Puka Nacua, who was in the Senior Bowl also. Both of those guys were in the Senior Bowl. Just big physical wide receivers that have, a lot of explosion and a lot of ability to make plays down the field and be assets in the running game because they're not afraid to stick their nose in there.
Brad, if we expanded it to the wide receiver position, I'd be surprised if the Ravens went wide receiver in round 1 again because they do appear set with their top 2 guys, and I think it's maybe as excited as we've ever been about a top 2 wide receiver in Ravens history with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. But I do still think they could use some depth, and I think a lot of us would say that like that prototype wide receiver, like is there a 6'4", 6'5" guy that isn't a first round guy? Is there someone like that was down there in Alabama that stood out to you as you were doing your work?
Well, I'm a little biased, so I have the Northeast for the Senior Bowl, and then I also have Oregon, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. So I get the chance to see a lot of good players all over. Kind of a mix. Going all the way to the Great Northwest, and then Big Ten country, and then back here up the Eastern Seaboard. So I'm a little biased to Ty Felton from the University of Maryland.
Yeah.
We were fortunate to have him down there. His playmaking ability, he caught, a couple touchdowns during the week. And, he has what I love to call sweet feet. I mean, he gets his feet down in bounds. But, Jack Beck would be a guy, as we talked about. Drew McCoy out of Tennessee, another big, strong kid, 6'2", 215 pounds, 10-inch hands, 83-inch arms, with wingspan and third. I mean, just a huge monstrosity of a guy at the University of Tennessee. But I think if, there's another guy would be intriguing for me is another one of the guys that I scouted out of Virginia Tech. And I may be a little biased, but he was just a large human being, caught a touchdown in the game, and that's Daquan Felton.
Mm-hmm.
He was at Norfolk State. He transferred to Virginia Tech. Thought about coming out last year, and I'm glad he went back. And he's 6'4". I mean, he's 6'4", 222 pounds with a 78-inch wing.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a large prototypical, and I don't think he's even prototypical. He's above prototypical. But if you're looking at, okay, you have Zay Flowers who's in the slot and kind of lines out, all over the place. And Rashard Bateman finally had an emerging year, as a wide receiver on the outside as well. Those guys are almost interchangeable. And Todd Monken, congrats to Monk, got an extension, got some new money, well deserved for him, I saw.
Yep.
And if you can get a Daquan Felton, a guy that in the red zone, you can just throw it up there and let him go get it. That's something that I think would be advantageous when you're talking about the wide receiver position. But there's a ton of them. I mean, you got, Jalen Royals, who I absolutely love out of Utah State. I mean, he's more of he's not a slot guy. He can do everything, and he's just another dynamic. But if you're the Ravens and you're looking to add size and some physicality, Daquan Felton for Virginia Tech would definitely be someone that they could target probably, in the middle rounds.
We're chatting with Brad Jackson, Super Bowl 35 champion, now a scout for the Senior Bowl. He's with us here on GCR. Brad, I wanted to turn. I know that there was some disappointment. Some of the guys that showed up but maybe didn't stick around for the game. But two names that I feel like stood out a lot. One that I don't think there's any chance that will fall to the Ravens. So maybe I'll start the other way. Let me go to Mike Green from Marshall, as I think the Ravens will certainly be in the edge rush market early on in the draft. And I think that a lot of times there's doubts about guys who put up big numbers at smaller schools. But given what you saw of Mike Green in practice, how much did he hold his own and solidify that, his production wasn't just about where he was playing?
Yeah, I mean, Mike is an intriguing guy from Marshall University, out there in West Virginia, kind of undersized. And, he plays with a chip on his shoulder. And he's one of those guys. And there's another one that was on that national squad, and David Walker out of Central Arkansas. I mean, Mike Green, is basically 6'3", 257. They talk about his arm length and all this other nonsense. And I always try to tell, there's a lot of scouts in this business, especially in the NFL, that they're more, I wouldn't say analytics, but they kind of just fall in love with body types, and they fall in love with the metrics and those type of things, which is all fine and dandy. But there's a metric that can't measure, and that's heart. And I always remind those guys, like I was a small linebacker coming out. Mel Kiper said I'd never play in the NFL, and I love reminding him every time how wrong he was when I see him. And but it's just one of those things that you can't count out those small guys, and the Ravens have always done well, as have other teams, of finding those quote unquote diamonds in the rough. Even though everyone knows they're there, they just may fall. But Mike Green is a guy. He had some, obviously some viral moments when he ran over Connolly from the University of Oregon, and he had a pretty good week. But edge-wise, the guy that I fell in love with was from UCLA. Femi Oladejo. I mean, this dude. I mean, I think he was the defensive MVP of the game. When you talk about just energy every day, like this dude, he could have been a Raven playing with us back in the 2000 team. He is nonstop talking. He is nonstop motor, and he backs it up. So, he was one of the guys, Josiah Stewart out of Michigan, John Joyner out of Minnesota. These were all good edge guys. Savion Jones is the guy that I really, really fell in love with more and more. 6'5", 289 pounds, 10, almost 11-inch hands, 81-inch wingspan. I mean, you can move him up and down the line. So in the Baltimore Ravens system, he's versatile. He can be on the edge. He can be on the inside. He got after people, and Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M was another one of those edge guys that like 6'5", 280 pounds that can move up and down. Jared Ivey, same type of thing. So those were all the edge guys that were my favorite on the both squads. And I mean, we were loaded with talent this year. So I know your listeners probably like, who's all these guys? And these are all guys that I know from being here and obviously talking with the brass and the people that they all fit into the building. Like these are guys that are Ravens. And there's some other guys that were there and they're good players. But you have to know what can fit into your building and on your roster. And these are the guys that stood out to me that would encompass in being what it plays, playing like a Raven means, when you're talking about those edge guys that could obviously help a pass rush that doesn't need much help. At second in the league last year, in sacks. Unfortunately, in the playoffs, they weren't able to get to Josh Allen. So, and Van Noy's getting older. I know he had a phenomenal year. Owe, finally broke double digits for the first time. So there's promising signs there. But yeah, you can never have enough corners. You can never have enough pass rushers in this business, especially on the defensive side of the ball and the way that this league goes.
Yeah, you brought up Shamar Stewart. I don't think there's a chance that he's around at 27 at this point. I think, unfortunately.
I don't think so either. But you know how the draft is.
Oh, no doubt. Right.
One team panics, and all of a sudden you'll start seeing a run of a different position, and you find yourself in an ability to trade up, and maybe he's sitting there, in the late teens, and you're able to move up a spot and give up a 4th or 5th round pick in this year or next year's draft, and maybe you're able to, to move up. So you just never know in this draft. I think there's a lot of uncertainty, especially with the quarterbacks, even though there's teams that need quarterbacks. Like from my discussions with, all 32 teams in the NFL, last week, there are so many question marks on this quarterback class. We had the best of the best. We had Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. Obviously, I mentioned Seth Hennigan already. Dylan Gabriel, who's undersized. But I think Miami's going to be the home for him, just in case. It's not a matter of if, but when Tua continually gets hurt, that you don't have to change the offense. And Tyler Shaw from Louisville. So, and we know the big dogs, Cam Ward, who was in, who was out, who was in, who was out, and then Shador, who wasn't planning on doing anything all along anyway. So, I just think there's a lot of questions. I don't think there's a true, standout at quarterback where you're like, this is the guy, even though there just seems to be a lot of love that Jackson Dart, and from what I've seen, he would be the most ready quarterback in the NFL right now, depending on what a lot of people saw and as he continues to move up the charts. So we'll see what happens with the quarterback position. The Ravens are just lucky that they don't have to worry about that.
No doubt. Yeah, Brad, I was going to bring up, because you brought up Connerly a second ago with the viral moment with Mike Green, and I wanted to talk to you about the tackles, but I want to give you this concept first, which is, I think we all believe that at this point, the Ravens, the priority should be trying to keep as much of this intact as possible to put yourself back in this position a year from now. Like, you're right there. You're knocking on the door. And when Ronnie Stanley has been healthy the last couple of years, he's been great. The problem is, you have to give that caveat of when he's healthy. And, as a pending free agent at left tackle, I mean, we know what that position does, and that could be in the neighborhood of $25 million. So I'm struggling with, can the Ravens afford Ronnie Stanley versus can the Ravens not afford to lose Ronnie Stanley? I'm really struggling with that conversation. I wonder where you are with that.
Well, I agree with you. I've been hot and cold on Ronnie. We know what he is when he plays. But, again, the best ability is availability in the National Football League. And, when you're paying an offensive lineman like he was last year to rotate, and he played well this year. And obviously we know why. I was a former player. We all know how you got your agent, your family, your future. You do things a little bit with more of a sense of urgency in your contract years. And that's not a knock on him. It's just a reality. And he played well this year. But, yeah, the question is, the left side of the offensive line, obviously, Patrick McCarry and, as you said, Ronnie are free agents. And this is an offensive line in this draft class that is loaded. I mean, loaded all over it. It was so fun. I think, the O-line and D-line, I had to catch myself where every day I'm watching one-on-ones and I'm watching these dudes get after it. And, when you're talking about left tackles, first-round guys and guys that can obviously be there, you have Ariate Ursary from Minnesota, almost 6'6" guy, 330 now, feet like a ballerina. Anthony Belton, questions about him controlling his weight, another 6'5", 345-pounder at NC State. One of the guys that was very good was an offensive lineman that played all over the place. I'm sure you heard about him in Gray Zabel. I mean, he's just another North Dakota State dog.
What do you think he is at the next level, Brad?
He's a dog. That's what he is. You're going to put him anywhere on that offensive line, and he's going to whip, $2 dollar signs. That's what he's going to do. Like, he did it at center. He did it at guard. He did it at tackle. I mean, I think, right now I would put him at guard. That's where he seemed to be just doing, his work. You got Emory Jones at LSU. So, it's going to come down to money, and I'm sure Ronnie Stanley's not going to give a hometown discount, but it's going to be, is it a 3 or 4 year deal for Ronnie? Is it a 2 year, deal with a third year option? But the money situation and how they're going to do it, I think you would be better to know than the Ravens cap situation. That was the $8-9 million.
Yeah, it's tight. Yep.
They are at currently.
Yep.
So, that's the things. Obviously, you can restructure some deals and do all that and make money down the road for you to go after and keep some of those players. But yeah, the Ravens' philosophy has always been you want to retain guys that you draft and that are good players as much as you can. But we also know that the Ravens have no problem letting their best players and Hall of Fame players and Ring of Honor players walk. And so, they trust in the system and what they're going to do and their ability to go out there. And this year's draft, you have an abundance of talent in the offensive line.
I hate that I have to ask you this question, but can you tell us anything about the kickers that were down there in Mobile? Oh, we lose Brad. I think we lost Brad.
Draw that out in the next couple of months.
Okay.
But there is a lot of talent in the offensive line, and I think the Ravens will be fine no matter which way they go.
Brad, I hate that I have to ask you this question, but what can you tell us about the kickers that were down in Mobile?
I can tell you nothing about the kickers down in Mobile.
I get it. It's not your area. I understand.
Oh no, you scout everything.
Do you really?
You know, yeah, you have to. You scout everything, but the kickers in this class they're just okay. There's nobody there that stands out.
Okay.
You know, like we had our kickers that were there were not as consistent as you would like.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's the pressure and all that, but you know, considering what's happened in Baltimore, as obviously the news broke when we were in Mobile about Justin Tucker and that whole situation. Obviously, the Ravens are going to let it play out, and we'll see where it goes from there. And that situation is just unfortunate, and you know, for all the women that are involved.
No question.
Obviously, and it's unfortunate for what Justin allegedly was doing. And again, you let the cards play out and see where it is in that situation. But I would be very surprised if the Ravens were looking in the draft for a kicker, because there's just not that guy. You'll be able to get a guy off the street if they have to move and go that direction, because pending the investigation or whatever happens with just a situation that if they're forced to make that move. But there's not a guy in the draft that they're going to be worried about or drafting in this year's draft, like you've seen in the past where some kickers have made their way into mid-round or maybe even late round.
All right, before I let you go, I just want to run this by you because of the perspective that you have from having played the position. There's been a lot of, like, I don't know, strange online conversation the last couple of weeks about is Roquan Smith somehow disappointing because of the amount of money that he's making? And we all know Roquan Smith's a really good football player and has been a revelation since being acquired by the Baltimore Ravens. But the conversation that's come up, and I'm not necessarily part of this, like I just think this is the cost of football players, but when you pay a guy $20 million a year, is he supposed to suddenly be otherworldly? What you know of the position and what you see of Roquan Smith, can you shed some light and give some perspective about, is Roquan Smith a player that's worthy of the amount of money that the Baltimore Ravens are paying him?
3 letters, 1 word, yes.
Okay.
I mean, the fact that he's 27, he's still in the prime, he's a leader, like he's a playmaker. Like when you watch the film, like nothing has fell off with him. I think what has hurt Rowe is that the other guys on the other side have not developed and came along as far to help him out as great as Ray Lewis was, right? We all know he's Mufasa. We all know Lou's got a statue up and he's in the Hall of Fame and maybe one of the best middle linebackers to ever play the game, obviously top 3, behind Singletary, Buckets, and 52. We all know that. But you have to have other good players. We had the Sharpers. We had the Bulwers. We had the Cornell Browns. We had myself in there, taking up tackles and being at the bottom of the pile. So your supporting cast at linebacker, you want to be able to move on a string. And so, I think Trent Simpson has a lot of promise. He was up and down. I think Malik Harrison has never really, not a knock on the kid. He's never really developed into what the Ravens, I think, anticipated him being when he came out of Ohio State, years ago. And so I think that's just a situation that a lot of people are like, Roquan was so good last year, and he elevated defense after the trade, and he played at a high level this year. And it's absolutely asinine that, people sitting at home and online are saying that $20 million, for Rowe was too much. I mean, that's actually a deal. He did it himself. The Ravens obviously know the value, which is why they didn't balk back on it, and it was done. And they just need to get him, either Trent Simpson needs to take that next step, or the Ravens have to finally hit on a guy next to him. I mean, Patrick Queen played better because of Roquan Smith, which is why P. Queen was able to go out and get big money and go to our division rival Pittsburgh when a lot of his value around the league had dropped. So, to sit here and say that that's Rowe's fault is absolutely insanity, and it's just people looking for clickbait or whatever. Now, I had several linebackers that I would love. Demetrius Knight from South Carolina. I mean, he's a kid that I don't think he gets out of the first round, but he's a dude. He's a Raven. I mean, when I tell you he is absolutely Raven, I fell in love with him And then there's some other guys, out there. Nicholas Martin from Oklahoma State was great. Jeffrey Boss out of Oregon, was another one of those guys that, would fit into what we do and how we do things. Shamor James from Florida, Eugene Asante from Alexandria, Virginia, started at UNC, finished at Auburn. Just a phenomenal kid, a phenomenal athlete, and he'd be, a perfect guy next to Rowe. All those guys would be wonderful next to Rowe, and I think would help, take some of the pressure where offenses are scheming Rowe, because they honestly can say, okay, we don't have to worry about the guy playing next to him as much as we need to. So hopefully those guys in the building get better this offseason, because then that will only make Rowe better himself, and he's already a great Pro Bowl player. So I just think it's buffoonery for people to sit here and say that paying what they're paying Rowe is too much. I mean, he's the leader of that defense, and that defense, as we know, got extremely better since he's been here, especially in the middle and versus the run.
What's next for you now that you get through Senior Bowl week? What does life look like for the next few months?
Life is breaking down. I'm gonna go back and watch the practice tapes again and write a report. And so I'm fortunate enough that in the last couple of years I've developed a very good reputation around the league. So had a couple interviews last year. It just wasn't anything that roles that I was interested in, and I enjoy my free time. I don't mind the work. But,
When you say, are you thinking like front office or coaching? Which way is the?
No, coaching is very difficult right now. I mean, you see, like, Mr. Bishotti told me this, almost a decade ago. Long before I was doing any of this, I was still an entrepreneur and hanging out with you media guys, trying to be a pro like you.
Right.
And that was, good coaches get fired every year. And, obviously the Ravens parted ways with my Bearcat teammate, Chris Hewitt, who's now with the Colts. And obviously we know he's a good coach when he's done to develop guys. In the past, you have Wink Martindale that's had to go, and, Rex Bryant obviously got his job. So for me, someone asked me this, they're actually contemplating, they were filming kind of a Hard Knocks type of thing about the Senior Bowl. And so I did one sit down because I was part of the first Hard Knocks. Those cameras all over annoyed me. But, I like to fly below the radar. But, for me in a league that, obviously is ran by the players, it's a players-driven league. The league is, 70%, minority or somewhere around there. And a lot of the coaches, so you're good enough to play in the league, you're good enough to coach in the league. But outside of Isaac Newsom and John Lynch, there hasn't really been a former player that they have allowed to build a team. And so for me, that drives me. I've built, 2 successful companies and sold them off and done extremely well. And so I was a part of that whole process. And so I've been a part of this whole process and doing scout schools and, and doing all the work. And there's a lot of people have looked at it like, you've taken the time to do all the work and, basically from the ground up. And so I saw Ozzy down in Mobile as well. I had time, a moment to spend with him to talk about things. So for me, it's the front office. I mean, I just think that there's just not enough representation of players in the front office that, can help build a team. And that's no knock on guys that didn't play, but there's a certain element of guys that when you understand and you're scouting guys of what a guy can do. And so I know there's a lot of value in that I bring, and several teams, have, interviewed me on the process, and it just wasn't opportunities that I was, willing to take right now as far as like being on the other side of the country, and doing those things right now. So I have the opportunity to make my own schedule and do my own things. And Jim Nagy, our executive director of the Senior Bowl, obviously is a phenomenal mentor. He'll probably be back in the league one day shortly as well. But the way he's taken, former athletes under his wing, like we had a Dallas Thomas in the scout school. Marcus Smith, former Raven, was down at scout school and were team leaders this past week. So we've had a number of former Ravens. Tommy Polley has been in the scout school. So there, Adam Terry, obviously. So it's a great avenue, and guys are really understanding, and Jim does a phenomenal job with former players getting the opportunity to learn and build their craft. So
it's awesome.
So
man.
for right now, that's where I'm at, and we'll see what happens after this draft season and cycle. Where it goes. Obviously, people always ask me. I'd love to be down the road, at one winning drive.
Yeah.
Helping to bring another championship here, and but the Raven way is we don't really have many former of us players in the building as far as on the scouting side. So hopefully that'll change.
Yeah.
There's been
Let's change that. Let's change that.
Hey, listen, I got nothing to do with that.
I know. And I promise you, they stopped listening to me some time ago. They stopped doing.
I don't think they ever listened to me.
That's not true. You know that. Brad, love you, brother. Always appreciate you, man. Thanks for hopping on, and let's talk soon.
No
all right.
problem. Thank you. Absolutely. Be well. God bless.
See you, buddy. Brad Jackson. We just did 30 minutes. I've known Brad obviously for a really long time. We did Purple and Black together for a little while. Great dude. Appreciate him taking the time. Let's grab a break, and then we'll talk to Rick Dempsey, and we'll let him share some reflections and memories of his friend and former teammate Rich Dauer. We'll do that next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
COVID-19 and flu viruses are circulating in Maryland. But don't worry, protection is within arm's reach. Protect your health with this year's COVID-19 and flu shots. It's safe and convenient to get them both at the same time. Flex your protection. For more information, visit health.maryland.gov/vaccines.
This message paid for by the Maryland Department of Health.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCRs. Continue along on this Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Believe that Stan the Fan is planning on being back in action this week, and we know we're going to do our picks together for the Super Bowl on Thursday. All of Stan's shows always brought to you by the Costa Sin and 1-800-GAMBLER. As always, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline, or PressBoxOnline.com/video. Unfortunately, this week, we lost an Orioles legend, a Hall of Famer, as Rich Dauer passed away at the age of 72. And I feel like, unfortunately, I try to go out of my way to make sure that not every time I catch up with our next guest, it's to talk about someone who has passed. I try to make sure that we do it enough that it's not always the case, but I do always appreciate how willing he is to talk about these people that mean so much to Baltimore fans. And he is, of course, the 1983 World Series MVP and everyone's best friend here in Baltimore. Our buddy Rick Dempsey is back with us this morning here on GCR. Rick, it's Glenn. I hate why we're doing it, but it is always good to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning, pal.
Oh, you're very welcome. I mean, and more than a worthy subject, Richie was just so important to this ball club. All the years that he was there, not that he was a standout player or myself a standout player, but, he brought an energy to the ball club that we needed. We call him one of the Three Stooges, and we just had so much fun together. And the serious part of his game, he wasn't the fastest second baseman or the most powerful second baseman, but everything that he did just maximized his talent. He the routine ground ball, he never missed, and always where he was supposed to be down on the field. But I think one of his biggest strengths, was just his approach to the ball club, always a positive attitude, and those kind of things, even when you're not winning a lot of ball games, mean a lot to a ball club. You got to keep the spirits up. Some guys give in a little bit during the hard times. Well, you never saw that out of Richie Dauer, and I'm a little embarrassed because, I live in California and Richie's on the East Coast and everything. And I was just embarrassed because it was so hard to look his way, and just sit there and pray that, he gets a break and that he could somehow come out of this thing, on top. And I thought for a while that he was going to make it. And then things just took a negative turn, and it was hard to look in his direction. And I apologize for that, but he was always in our thoughts and our prayers and everything. And his wife, Chrissy, I tell you, can't say enough about his family and his wife, how they stuck with him the whole time, over 2.5 years of being bedridden like that, and all that he had to put up with. He had a few ups and everything, and we were all hoping that he would get across the finish line there too, but it just never did happen. And now at the end of it all, you look back and you say, oh my God, we lost such a good friend and such a great teammate. And you just can't replace people like him when they come to an organization and they come to a team, and how he just gave everything to the Baltimore Orioles. And it was a big reason why we were such a winning ball club the whole time that he was there.
Rick, you mentioned that, Rich was not the greatest baseball player of all time, but I wonder if we don't give him enough credit for how good he was, particularly defensively.
Well, yeah, we had a lot of good players, but, a lot of teams do have a lot of good players, but they don't win, Richie knew how to keep everybody in a place where, we were focused on doing the little things, and he definitely did that. To us, his teammates, we saw how important he was to the ball club, and turning double plays, making sure the ball didn't get by him, the relay throws. And, he doesn't get enough credit for getting a lot of big hits. He used the whole field. He could hit the ball down the right field line better than anybody, and getting guys across on the bases and getting guys in the little games, doesn't show up all the time in the box scores. But we know down on the field what he meant to all of us and what he meant to the Baltimore Orioles.
Rick, it's you bring up his personality, and so many people have talked about that, and the story of win one for the Duck in '82. Did you always know that? When you first met, was he always like that, or did that maybe come along as he was up and finding a little bit of success? Where did that personality come from for Rick?
Well, I think he always had the personality. That was a big reason why the Orioles brought him to the big leagues in the first place, pretty good minor league hitter, upper 300s, and he just did so many of the little things well. As the game has gone on, we've gotten away from, hitting the ball to the opposite side, just getting runners over. Those kind of little things don't seem to be as important to the teams nowadays with the new analytical approach. But, he did, for what was our era, he did all the little things that you have to do to be a winning ball club. He did them all pretty well, as good as anybody on the ball club. We didn't have the power, to hit home runs and do that kind of thing. But when it came to moving the ball around up there, Richie hit in that number 2 slot most of the time because he was that good a hitter.
I wonder, you bring that up, and yet he had a knack for, like, big hits in big we all think about, unfortunately it didn't work out for Game 7 of the 79 World Series, but, like, he came up with really big hits in the playoffs again in 83. Like, someone that just, whatever he was as a hitter overall, someone who clearly shined when the moments were the biggest.
Well, it did because, Richie was the kind of hitter that could use the whole field.
Right.
If you threw him away and you had a man on second base, 99% of the time it was going to right field. And you get overshadowed when you have greats in the lineup like an Eddie Murray and a Ken Singleton and all the great Cal Ripken. And you get overshadowed a little bit by those great talents. But even the great talents knew how important it was to have a Richie Dauer in the middle of that. So the philosophy of the game has changed a little bit. It's about the home run ball, and the uppercut swing.
Right.
But Richie Dauer was just a pure good hitter. You look at his numbers in the minor leagues, 300 pluses. That's what got him to the big leagues. He wasn't a base stealer. That kind of guy didn't have that kind of speed. But, he just took advantage of every opportunity he got. They give him an extra base, he'd take it. Hit to the right side, he'd take it. Doesn't show up in the box scores, the little sacrifices that you make to hit in the upper part of the lineup. But we all knew that Richie was the guy we wanted in there because he got the job done. And I think that's why you saw that organization continue on the path that great Oriole teams always had. And, and so you can't take anything away from that guy because he gave you 150% every single day.
Rick, it's so funny you say that because I saw that Cal on Twitter said, like, he embodied the Oriole way. And I feel like what you're talking about is exactly that definition, right? Like that playing the game the way the game is supposed to be played beyond just the talent that you have.
Yeah, and there was just Al Bumbry, the leadoff hitter for us at the time. When he got on base, he could steal second base. The minute he got there, Richie knew what his job was to get him over to third with less than 2 outs. And it was always there. Those little bitty things like that just mattered so much on winning organizations and winning teams. And, and Cal was right. He embodied what true Oriole was all about, and we just did a lot of the little things that kept us in the hunt every year.
No question. Remind me which of you was which of the Three Stooges? Who was who?
I was Mo. I was the leader.
Yeah, right. It's funny, Rick, because you bring up Rich and his personality, but we always know your personality is what made everybody in this town fall in love with you, right? It was the same thing. Were you always that way? Did any of that from him rub off on you a little bit in the type of player that you were?
I have to compare Richie because he and I both had that same positive attitude all the time. Sure, we get angry with ourselves when we didn't do well. Or angry when somebody else was giving us a tough time. But, we just knew what we had to do. And a lot of times just keeping people loose and, making it seem like the things that went wrong weren't so important, but we could make up for it today. And it was so much fun, especially in 1983 Richie and I could just keep a smile on other people's faces,
Yeah.
And Richie hit up there in the part of the order where his job was very important, to be able to get guys over, go the opposite way, set up the innings for the big boys. And, they did their jobs, and we just kind of fit in at the bottom of the order where I was most of the time. So, but, Richie just was that kind of person that the Orioles needed a couple guys like that, and they brought him up out of the minor leagues, and he just fit right in perfectly.
I wonder, we talked a lot during the anniversary a couple years back about how, like, the 83 season was not easy, right? Like, you guys went through those dips and those losing streaks in there. How important was it to have, like that type of personality and that type of mindset to keep guys lifted up when you were going through that?
Well, he was never down.
Yeah.
That was the fun of being around him. He was going to say something that would make you laugh. He was going to say something that was going to energize the ball club all the time. He was just that kind of person that every team needs two or three of those guys. And so Richie was the number one on this team because he hit high in that order. He's the one that set the innings up for the big boys, and they know it. And that's just the way we played. And that's why we had such a winning percentage for the entire, 10 years he spent there with us. And it was just a lot of fun to play with him because it was all about winning.
He spent 30 years after his playing career as a coach, and to the point, obviously, had he not, had the fall in 2017, probably would have been longer than that. Were you at all surprised by that, like just being, given the things you talk about, the guy that did everything the right way, were you at all surprised that, like, that was his path and that he continued to be a baseball lifer?
Well, I would say, he was a quiet leader in his own way. He wasn't as outspoken as I was. I'm behind home plate. You had to kind of, mix things up a little more vocally with me. But with Richie being a great coach at the same time, he was always able to, talk to players and tell them what is expected of them, how to really help a ball club win ball games. And so, and like I say, all the little things that he said really meant something to those players. They knew that if they listened to what he had to say about winning, that eventually they would become great producers for their teams. And look he was with the Houston Astros at the end, and they won the World Series. That's when they really started their big run.
Yep.
And so Altuve was one of the guys he had an opportunity to communicate with, and look what a great player he turned out to be.
No question.
Maybe not all of it was about Richie Dauer, but I'll guarantee you a little bit of it was.
I think that's well said, Rick Dempsey. I'm so glad that you could share these memories with us of Rich Dauer, and we talk about there's a generation of Orioles fans that would simply look at his stats and say, why was he so important? And I'm so glad that you could explain to Orioles fans exactly why he was so important. Rick,
let me just say one thing before you got off. I give a lot of the credit to Chrissy Dauer.
Yeah. Special person. Yep. Special person.
She hung with him the whole way.
Rick,
yeah.
I hope you know.
It takes a great person
no
to
question.
do what she did.
No question. And I hope you know we love you. I hope you know that everybody in this city loves you, and we're thinking of you and everybody today. And I'm really grateful that you always take the time, man. I hope you know that. I truly love you, brother. Thank you for doing this.
Okay, thank you, guys. Okay,
Rick Dempsey, 1983 World Series MVP, of course, and I really do. It's powerful. That's really powerful. And yeah, I appreciate him doing that and spending time. And every single one of those guys would tell you how important Rich Dauer was in the lead up, in the era of falling short in 79 to finally winning in 83, whatever you want to call that era of Orioles baseball. Every single one of those guys would tell you how critical Rich Dauer was. despite the fact that he wasn't a star, despite the fact that he was a role player. But they would all tell you he was a critical role player for them on the field, off the field, the way that Rick just explained it, in finally overcoming, moving past what happened in 79, and ultimately becoming World Series champions in 1983. Safe home to Rich Dauer, and really appreciate Rick taking the time. And it's tough. It's tough for showing vulnerability. I greatly appreciate Rick Dempsey doing that. Yeah, Dan, I brought it up with Brad. I saw I don't know where it started. I feel like there was a tweet that somebody sent out a couple where they were like looking at the salaries for I don't know, the top 8 paid Ravens, and they were like, only 2 of those guys are actually worth it. And I was like, Jesus, man. Like, I don't know if that's where it started, but there's been this like weird discourse. The internet stinks. I hate it. I hate Twitter. Because like someone who has a minority opinion can be amplified and given dramatic attention, and then people can all of a sudden be like, there can be an amount of groupthink that comes from that. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe that guy's right. Roquan Smith, what were our grades for Roquan Smith this year? Do you remember what we gave him? Because I feel like it was
not off the top of my head, but I can
like
find
B
it.
plus,
quickly.
A-, something like that. If I had to guess, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I don't feel like Roquan Smith had a good season. Maybe you didn't feel his impact the same way, in part because, like, when he arrived, he was such a revelation that it was easy to see the difference between defense without Roquan Smith and defense with Roquan Smith.
I gave him a B plus. You gave him a B.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's about right. So we don't see it the same way. We had tangible evidence of difference between no Roquan with Roquan. And so at a position where it's different, we're not measuring it by, you measure edge rushers by sacks. You measure edge rushers maybe by win rate, you've got statistics by which you measure edge rushers. You don't have the same statistics by which to measure an inside linebacker. If for the sake of it, you want to pull up his PFF grade, just for the sake of it. You don't have statistics for that. Once upon a time, we treated tackles that way, and then we kind of got smart to like the tackle itself isn't. A lot of times, it's just you were the player that was there. It's not necessarily that you made a play as much as it might be that they just kind of ran at you. So you were the one that made it. Like number of tackles did not become, we realized quickly, was not a good defining stat for how someone performed. So it's difficult for us to measure the impact of Roquan Smith because we've moved past here was the defense before Roquan Smith, here's the defense with Roquan Smith.
He was the 12th ranked defensive Raven. He had a 66. It was a 66.9 was his PFF grade.
So that's a little. That's a
and then among
that's a little down, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's PFF. So who knows?
No,
He was also the 12th ranked linebacker as well by PFF. Among linebackers that played 80% of the snaps, he was the 12th.
Who are the guys ahead of him?
He was right behind Levante David. Yeah,
okay.
Zach Bond was number 1.
Yeah.
Bobby Wagner was number 2.
Okay.
Jack Campbell in Detroit was number 3. And then Jamie Sherwood, the Jets linebacker.
I was not aware that Jamie Sherwood was so well
DeMario
done.
Davis.
That's the first one where I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I don't know who that is.
But yeah,
by the way, if we had done that as a tidbit, I would have never gotten it. Never would have come up with Jamie and Sherwood.
Yeah, I mean, they said Jordan Brooks from Miami had a good year. Caden Ellis.
Okay.
Dan Henley.
I don't want to get lost in the sauce here on this one. Someone,
but PFF still have it in the top third of linebackers.
Right, would say right, but that doesn't make you work. If you're getting paid $20 million at inside linebacker, you better be the best. That's what somebody would say. If a non-prime position is soaking up that much of your cap, you better be at the top of that position. And to that person, I would say I understand the thought process, but it's perhaps not that simplistic. For example, I don't know what the difference is. What is the score difference, or the rating difference between Roquan Smith and whoever the number 5 linebacker?
So like 5. So Jordan Brooks from Miami was the number 6 guy. He was a 71.3. Roquan was.
So that's
5 grade points.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a bunch of guys that are bunched up.
Zach Bond was 90.2.
He's the guy that Zach Bond unquestionably was the best inside linebacker in football this season, no doubt about it. But it sounds like, and by the way, look at what Zach Bond had around him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, would I like Roquan Smith to make bigger or splashier plays? Of course. I think a lot of us pointed out that after the season went the way that it did to start, the Ravens decided to run a much more simplistic defense. As the year went on, it became way more about assignments and being in the right place than it became about making the biggest splash plays. That'll be something that they'll probably look to evolve. How can we make bigger plays? As many people have pointed out, the turnover differential in playoff games has been dramatic for the Ravens. They've turned the ball over a good bit in these losses, but they also have not created turnovers at all. So that might be the next, the evolution in the second year of Zach Orr being defensive coordinator, and with the addition of Chuck Pagano and some other people, it might very well be that a priority is, okay, now how do we build off of this more simplistic defense? We righted the ship by dumbing it down a little bit. Now, how do we bring back some of the aggression without it hurting us the way that it did a year ago? If that's the case, I would like to think Roquan Smith would be a big part of that. I think the question to me is, would you rather have Roquan Smith at that price or player TBD?
Trenton Simpson and Malik Harrison. Those are
that's kind of what you're talking. The situation. Remember when you were scrambling a couple years ago, and all of a sudden it was Josh Bynes and L.J. Fort because you had nothing, because you were, let's save some money at inside linebacker. And then you woke up in week 4 and you're like, oh crap. Now again, that was salvaged. They got Josh Bynes and they got L.J. Fort and they made it work. You don't get to have Roquan Smith, and this is part of the problem. We wanted, is this guy worth this amount of money? You don't get to have Roquan Smith at a lesser dollar amount. That's not an option. And I would continue to say I'd rather have Roquan Smith. The big picture question of what is the opportunity cost when you pay an inside linebacker as much money as the Ravens paid Roquan Smith? It's a very fair question if presented a certain way. If presented, hey, Roquan Smith's really good, but would a team be better off just not paying big money at inside linebacker and using that money somewhere else? Remember, last offseason, I asked that question about running back. And in fairness, it wasn't even big money at running back. It was middle-of-the-road money at running back. But that was my question, is are you just better off, if you're going to spend money, are you just better off spending it somewhere else? Well, Glenn Clark, wrong. And I didn't even say it loudly. It was more just asking the question. But no was the answer. It's interesting. It's one of those we don't really feel like talking about Justin Tucker anymore. So without anything else to talk about, it's just something that has kind of percolated and bubbled on Twitter the last couple of weeks.
Trying to get him to take a pay cut, that's what's.
Is that
well, I'm asking.
I don't even know
if that's
is that even an option? Is that even I don't even know if that's something.
I guess it would always, but
no, it's not always an option. Hang on a second. I'm trying to bring up what his numbers are.
This is
Roquan Smith. It's not, his cap figure is $23 million. The dead money would be $41 million. No, it's not an option. You can't go to Roquan Smith and do anything. It's what it is, and that's fine. He's one of your knowns.
He's gonna be he's 28 and 29 the next 2
he's
seasons.
He's a known. You know what you're getting from Roquan Smith. High-level football player. You need to surround him with more good football players. I agree with that part. Go get more this offseason. Go add a. I don't know what their thought is with the other.
Add a Myles Garrett.
Yeah, sure. Go do that. Everybody's going to bring up Cooper Kupp now. I don't know what to make of the Cooper Kupp. Like how precipitous the drop has been for Cooper Kupp. I have no idea how to explain. Like, I think at first we just sort of thought, well, yeah, they got Puka Nacua and, balls are going different ways, and Cooper Kupp dealt with some injuries, but, like, it was alarming how uninvolved Cooper Kupp was in the Rams offense down the stretch. Like, he was healthy and just not getting the ball at all. That was alarming. I'm not telling you I guess my answer would be, is Cooper Kupp what the Ravens need? Like, we all like the idea of this is a football player that I know, that I've heard of, so
and
go get him.
Presumably is still good, but yeah.
But is that what the Ravens need? I know that we live in a crazy world where, like, wide receiver is available, and I'm saying I don't think so. But
he will be 32 this season.
Yeah. How is Cooper Kupp 32, by the way?
I don't know.
How old am I? Christ. Yeah, no, I'm a no on Cooper Kupp. I just don't think that's like
I mean, if it's gonna be like a fifth, I don't know.
I guess I don't even know how much, but I got to think about how much you got to pay Cooper Kupp. Like, there's still more complications to do that. Like, I can join you on Myles Garrett makes sense. Absolutely. It's not happening.
Yeah, logistically,
yeah,
but
it's not happening. But I can join you on Myles Garrett makes sense.
Kind of like Cooper Kupp. Oh, his cap hit is $29.7.
You can't make Cooper Kupp make sense. No. Like, you just can't. There's no sense to the idea of the Ravens trying to trade for Cooper Kupp. None. Zero. So no, I'm out on that conversation. Nope. No. Anything else that we didn't cover? Oh, yeah. Brad brought up the Todd Monken extension became official yesterday. Good for Todd Monken. But as we talked about before, like, that just means Todd Monken's going to be the offensive coordinator this year. That's all that means. Like, it means that, or until another job were to become available, that they want Todd Monken. Like, as I said before, that really means he's available this year. But if in February another coach randomly decides to retire and that team wants Todd Monken, then it does not matter at all that Todd Monken signed a contract extension.
What's he referring to?
I don't know. Everybody keeps wondering if Andy Reid will retire at some point. I guess Clark Hunt was saying on the Super Bowl the media day that, like,
you think Todd Monken would be the guy that they want to?
No, I don't think he would be either. It's a hypothetical. Yeah. Like, if for some reason,
or is that why Mike McCarthy pulled his name? And
is that why? I'm just. This is eternally my way of saying we make too much about the idea of Todd Monken getting a contract extension. That doesn't actually matter in any way. It doesn't. Because if he signs a 3-year contract extension, that doesn't mean that he's committed to being here for 3 years. He might. It might very well be that based on Todd Monken's age and the jobs that become available, that Todd Monken, much like Steve Spagnuolo, in Kansas City, ends up being here for a while. And that would presumably be a good thing for the Baltimore Ravens. But if next offseason, again, Gary Kubiak was going to be back in Baltimore right up until a very specific job was the one that was available. And they wanted him. And then he was going to be gone. The real good thing is that Todd Monken looks like he's going to be with the Ravens next year. But a contract extension for a coordinator really doesn't mean anything at all. Those guys are free to go. It's not like when you sign a player and you're like, well, now that guy can't go to free agency. Like, you can sign a contract extension as a coordinator and still be a free agent. You just can't take another offensive coordinator job, which no one ever does unless the team lets them go. So it's a very nuanced thing where I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing that Todd Monken signs a contract extension. Of course, it's a good thing that Todd Monken's going to be back, most likely. It's just that it doesn't really mean anything that he signed a contract extension. That's all. Maybe for him, it means a raise, and that's good for the Munkins. Like, good for them. Maybe you can share some with his brothers, or his brother doesn't say idiotic things leading up to a football game. Is his cousin? Is it his cousin? It's his cousin, right? That's the coach at Army.
Jeff Munkin.
Yeah, that's his cousin. I think it's his cousin, not his brother. Share some of it with him, so he stops saying really stupid things that create bulletin board material for the biggest game of the year. Like, maybe do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Or keep doing it. I don't know.
Sure. That's a good point. Let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by the CIAA tournament. Griffin.
The CIAA tournament is coming back to Baltimore as they welcome the excitement of the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament to CFG Bank Arena once again, February 25th through March 1st. Tickets are available at Ticketmaster.com. Make sure you head over there, Ticketmaster.com, again, for your tickets to the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament at CFG Bank Arena from February 25th through March 1st.
They're cousins.
Yeah, I was just confirming. They are cousins, in fact. Since we're talking about SGA, he had a pretty good game last night. He only played 22.5 minutes. However, he made 15 field goals for the Thunder last night in their beatdown of the Bucks. Fewest minutes played by any player in a game with 15 made field goals since the NBA-ABA merger back
How
in the
about
70s.
that?
So
How about it?
Quickest at 15
Congratulations.
ever. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're a big SGA guy, right?
I am a big. Well, apparently not as much as I thought I was.
Iowa State lost last night again to
They were the
Kansas.
number 3 team in the country.
And they're still a top 10
This
team.
is why I'm asking the questions,
at
like,
least as of heading into last
who's
night.
really good? Who's actually
Seems
definitively
like
good?
it's Auburn and Duke.
Yeah, is it just that? Is that what it is?
They're the first team to have 3 straight double-digit losses while ranked in the top 10 for each one since...
I have no idea.
Since Providence.
Oh,
in
sure.
1974.
Oh, yeah, the legendary
it was the
1974
last week of
Friars.
74 into the first year of 1975.
Sure,
Providence, as a top 10 team, dropped 3 straight by double digits as Iowa State did that in the past week, losing to Arizona by 11, Kansas State by 19, and Kansas by 17. So that means Kansas State, I guess, is the best of that bunch. They're the best team of those 3. Okay, so we're talking about what are we watching on Sundays? My brother happened to be watching the NBA for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it led me to my next tidbit here, because he texted me Sunday night. He's like, how about this Memphis Milwaukee game? And I was like, what? I was like, why is Penny Hardaway's Memphis Tigers playing Milwaukee, a non-conference game, randomly on a Sunday night? No, he was watching the Grizzlies and the Bucks, and then he was flipping around to another game.
All right.
And the tidbit is that there's a matchup Sunday night. It is the most frequent matchup in NBA history. Regular season, postseason games, most matchups all time. I have the top 5 here. There are 5 matchups that have occurred over 400 times in NBA history.
5 matchups that occurred. All right. So
number 1.
Does it involve the Celtics?
Yes.
Celtics-Knicks.
Celtics-Knicks is number 2, the second most frequent. They did not play Sunday night, but 560 meetings.
Well, that makes number 1 really difficult because, by the way, if you think I know who played on Sunday night,
yeah, I know.
Get the entire F out of here. Because like you would, the next place you would go to is Celtics 76ers, but like. It almost feels like more likely because obviously Philadelphia was the Warriors for a little while. Celtics Warriors.
No, not Celtics Warriors, but
Celtics 76ers.
Yes,
Okay.
Boston and Philly, the Sixers, 585 meetings between those two, and that is the number 1 most frequent matchup in NBA history. They did play Sunday night.
Are the Knicks involved with another one?
No. The Knicks are not involved with another top 5 matchup.
The Lakers are probably involved with
They
one
would
of these.
be.
Okay. Lakers Warriors.
Lakers Warriors is the 4th most frequent, not the 3rd. There's one more Western Conference matchup higher.
Are the Lakers involved with any others?
Yes.
Lakers Kings.
Lakers Kings. LA Sacramento, 490 meetings. Between
it
those
wasn't
two.
always Sacramento. Where were the Kings before they were Sacramento? They were
the Kings before.
They were oh god. The Kings were, and they might not have been the Kings at that point. It was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go.
What was it?
Kansas City.
Kansas City. Yeah, that's exactly where they were. All right, so there's one more that doesn't involve the Celtics or the Lakers.
I believe the Celtics are. The Celtics are involved.
They are still involved.
Yeah.
Celtics, Pistons.
Celtics, Pistons, Boston, Detroit, 440 meetings. Those are the 5 matchups with over 400. And then it is an interconference. The 6th most frequent is Celtics, Lakers at 375.
Yeah,
So,
I mean that's because of all the playoff matchups. That makes sense. But like it was going to be hard to break the top 5 because they're on the other sides of the country. Like it's going to be very difficult to do that. I do have there's 12 players all time.
I can't name 12 players anytime.
Rich Dauer is one of them.
Oh, okay.
So this is why it came up. Rich Dauer is one of only 12 players in the history of the sport to have both won a World Series and a College World Series. You're not getting it. I'm not doing this. Some of them you've never even heard of.
They were the 26th man on.
Well, like Ron Fairley, I don't know who that is. He won.
Oh, he went to.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Clemson.
Well, I would tell you. Well, hang on a second. Yeah, he won. No, he didn't go to Clemson. Sorry, he did not. But ironically, he won both his College World Series title and I think all 3 of his World Series titles in the same city.
Wow.
Because
he was because he was what? He was like he was a Manhattan Jasper?
No, he was not a Manhattan Jasper. No. No.
Because he was let's go with he was a St. John Johnny.
No, you keep going to New York. It's not New York. No.
Because he was
But I had to think about when they moved, is for what it's worth.
Okay. Then he was a UCLA Bruin.
He was other one.
He was a USC
he was a Trojan and an LA Dodger.
Gotcha.
He won 3 World Series with the LA Dodgers. Roy Smalley also was a USC Trojan and then won a World Series with the Twins. Rich Dauer famously was also a Trojan. I'm trying to think. Billy Bates was a Cincinnati Red in 1990 and won a World. Ed Vosberg was a pitcher for the Marlins in 97 and won the College World Series with Arizona. Mark Redmond was a pitcher for the Marlins in 2003 and won the College World Series with Oklahoma. Some former Orioles on this list. One that someone that's a guest was clamoring for them to have a reunion with.
Well, Ben McDonald didn't win a World Series.
No, someone who's a regular guest on the show was clamoring for this former Oriole to return to the Orioles last year, but it didn't happen.
Okay.
You just brought his name up last week when this guy was in studio because he's still available right now.
He's still available? Oh, Clayton Kershaw?
No.
You're saying Stan wanted
Stan
somebody
always wanted this guy back.
Oh, Justin Turner.
Justin Turner
is a World Series, College World Series.
Won a College World Series with the Cal State Fullerton in 2004, and obviously won a World Series with the Dodgers in 2020.
That's his only one?
Apparently. Speaking of those Dodgers, this man actually won a real World Series last year and won a College World Series with Vanderbilt in 2014. Walker Buehler. Another part of that 2014 Vanderbilt College World Series team then won a World Series in 2021 with the Atlanta Braves.
Dansby Swanson.
Exactly right. This guy you will not come up with. He was a Ranger in 2023, and he pitched at Virginia in 2015.
I don't know. Chris Martin.
You will not come up with this
Will
guy.
Smith.
I don't know why we're doing this because you will never come up with
Corey
him.
Seager? No.
No, it's Josh Spores.
Oh, Josh Spores.
Yes,
yeah,
Josh
of course.
And then a fellow former Orioles, 1975, won a College World Series with Texas, and then won not his World Series with the Orioles, but in 1980 with the Philadelphia Phillies.
I don't know. Mike Schmidt? No. Mike Schmidt.
We've had him on actually to talk about both baseball and football because he's also a college football TV analyst for ESPN.
Really?
Yes.
That's cool. That's good for him, I guess.
Well, he played at Texas.
He played baseball and football.
Played football and baseball at Texas.
And he won a World Series with the Phillies?
Won a World Series with the Phillies.
And he played
for the Orioles in
'89. So he didn't play the NFL, though?
No, he never played in the NFL.
So why not O, huh? I don't know.
Keith Moreland.
Keith
Moreland.
Sure.
We've had him on this show. He's done Navy games, things like that. And then again, we're not going to do this because we've already had enough with you today. But remember the 1970 Baltimore Orioles and won a College World Series in 1958 USC. His son also played for the Orioles years later.
Cal Ripken Sr.
No, definitively not. You're not getting it. You don't remember Damon Buford's dad, Don Buford.
Don Buford, yeah.
Was the
it was
other
on the tip of my tongue.
So there's
Don Buford.
Yeah, I could not possibly have done. There was.
Well, I got Dansby Swanson.
Yeah, you did. You did get Dansby Swanson. Very good. All right, let's find out what's coming up totally tubular-wise.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise. Patrick Stevens mentioned it earlier. That's where he's going to be. It is a cool local rivalry lacrosse matchup. Towson hosting Johns Hopkins at 6. You can watch it on Lacrosse TV, which I believe is a free website, unlike Flow Sports. I think Lacrosse TV you can watch for free. And then the better news, Towson announced yesterday that I think any of the games that aren't on Lacrosse TV will now be on Monumental.
The home games.
Yes, the home games, correct. So, yeah, that's a good point. Like, still, unfortunately, the CAA road games, you are SOL.
Radio with Spiro.
That's correct. That's what you got. But the home games, I believe Spiro calls them I think it's his broadcast that they put on Monumental. So, they'll do that for the home games that aren't on Lacrosse TV. Big Ten hoops tonight. Peacock for Purdue and Iowa at 7 o'clock. Indiana, Wisconsin at 9. Michigan State, UCLA at 10. Big Ten Network, Minnesota, Penn State at 7. USC, Northwestern at 9. Like the entire Big Ten is playing tonight. That's very weird.
On Tuesday?
Yeah, I don't know. Good one on ESPN. Kentucky, Ole Miss at 7 o'clock. And then, of course, they got video game golf at 9 o'clock. All the rest of the college basketball you can find at GlennClarkRadio.com. ESPN Plus and Hulu for Oilers Blues at 8 o'clock, and Stars Ducks at 10:30. Monumental for Panthers Capitals at 7 o'clock. TNT and True TV for Celtics Cavs at 7:30, and Lakers Clippers at 10. CW for WWE NXT tonight at 8. Non-sports.
Not a whole lot. An episode of Paradise on Hulu, the Sterling K. Brown and James Marsden TV show.
You've definitely talked to me about that, and I definitely remembered it and filed it
Bill
away.
Gates will be on that.
Oh, I didn't, because I told you guys I watched the Tom Green thing. I didn't say I also watched You're Cordially Invited. I did spend time with that on Friday night.
It's pleasant.
It's pleasant.
Okay.
It's pleasant enough.
Not a glowing review.
You're not going to be mad that you spent time with it. You're going to say, okay, like you've watched way worse things, but it's certainly the best thing it has going for it is its use of a certain Dolly Parton song. That's the best thing. That's the best thing that it has going for it.
Maybe
but
not that good.
It's good. It's good. It's a memorable way that they used it.
Well, now I don't think I'm going out of my way to.
Nobody should go. It's free.
St. Dennis Medical's on NBC. Then I know episode of that.
St.
Miles Teller will be on Stephen Colbert, and then are you doing a book club tonight?
We are doing book club for the Jerry Springer documentary,
Oh, okay.
which turned into a crime doc in the second episode.
There's 2 things coming out today that are kind of like borderline. Good,
We're doing
I guess.
next. We're doing Scamanda. I've already decided that.
Scamanda.
I don't know if I don't think
Scamanda.
I don't think the rest of the club knows that, but we're doing Scamanda next.
Scamanda. Wicked Game on Hulu. Devil in the Desert. So there was the description is a hunting mastermind of it, or they're hunting a mastermind of a violent abduction, this twisted tale of obsession. So a guy was abducting this couple, and then he tortured this guy. He cut his penis off and left him in the desert.
Oh, cool!
And then they did finally catch the guy.
I'm glad. Yeah,
they did finally catch the guy. Then he broke out of prison.
Oh.
And they,
right,
I don't know where it goes from there.
You got me.
I don't know where it goes from there. That's on Hulu.
I'm interested.
Wicked Game, Devil in the Desert. Paramount Plus has Burden of Guilt, where this woman Tracy Raquel Burns was blamed for her baby brother's unexplained death, and she's she feels guilty about it. And and I don't know. I guess they don't think that she's actually at fault here for I don't really know. But there was an infant that died, and they blamed his slightly older sister, and
all right.
That's on Paramount Plus.
Right. That one doesn't.
You
didn't really.
I didn't tell that one as well.
You didn't hook me the way that you hooked me.
I don't know. I don't know. It seemed freaky. So
Devil
I was
in the desert.
Figure I might bring it up.
All right. Very good. Thanks today to Rick Dempsey. Thanks also to Brad Jackson and to Patrick Stevens. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the
Can You Take Me Higher?
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing. Why would we? It's one of those weeks. Everybody's down in New Orleans. We're here. We're just trying to. The Orioles didn't bother to sign anybody. Maryland didn't play until Thursday.
Right.
Just one of those weeks.
Good week.
Yeah, right. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners. Of course, join us, Rita and I, tonight for Rita and Glenn, 105.7 The Fan, 6 to 9 p.m. Visit Hartford, Live Casino and Hotel, Cruise Maryland, Crown Trophy, Easy Pass, CIAA Tournament, Royal Farms, Brigance Brigade, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, Costas Inn, MSAA, Maryland Sports, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go Hopkins or Towson lacrosse. Duke sucks.